Day 2 of training camp is in the books. Brock Purdy's first day with the team, the first team as the guy, and there is so much more to talk about. We're going to do it all next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as you can see, it's a trio. Get used to this because all three of us every Thursday are going to be going live, rotating through each and everybody's channel. So make sure you are subscribed to Larry, make sure you are subscribed to Vish, and make sure you are subscribed here at Last Second Sports. Larry, I'll start with you. How you doing? The sunburn looks like it went away a little bit. We're in a good spot. How you doing today?
Oh man, I mean, today I put some lotion on today, and because yesterday I said, I don't need any lotion. It didn't feel that hot, but today I'm brought to you by DHC Suntan Lotion, and you just put a little dab on your forehead, and what it does is it really just keeps those UV rays away from burning your whiteness. Because I'm an expert in burning and peeling, ladies and gentlemen. Now, So I'm sure I get the farmer's tan on the arms, very tan forearms, but very white shoulders. It's me. It's a good look. It's a good look at the beach.
Strong. It is a strong look. Yeah. Vish, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm good. What a day to stream, huh? I was chomping at the bit earlier today when I saw this was going to be Brock Purdy's first practice, all of that. So I'm excited. This is going to be, I'm telling everybody, buckle in your seatbelts. If we can talk for 2 hours when there's nothing going on, how long do you think this show is going tonight?
We'll go as long until I have to pee and can't hold it anymore. That's how long the show is going. So if the show ends abruptly, it's time to get the bathroom break going. That's what's really going on. All right. Well, before we get started, we got super chats already, so I'm going to knock those out so that we can get to the show and try to go as long as we can before we got a break again. So shout out to John B., who's a new member. Shout out to Brother Bob. He says, I'm here to listen to Larry spin out of control, pig in a pickle. I don't know if you know this, Larry, but Brother Bob goes on every single stream, and every comment he ends with pig in a pickle. It's actually impressive.
I love it because it screams to my sponsor, market penetration.
It really does.
The Pig in a Pickle is the title sponsor of the Krueger show. So I'm glad to see it. Thank you, Brother Bob. Brother Bob, I did a stream with my son the other night. Brother Bob's a fan of my son, Kevin. Not as big a fan of myself, but that's all right. Either way.
I will say this to my brother Bob, who I see in all of these shows. Brother Bob, don't be giving Pig in a Pickle this free promotion. Know your worth. Know your worth, Brother Bob. It took me a long time to learn that one. Know your worth. Don't give Pig in a Pickle free promotion.
You should be getting sponsored just for being in everybody else's chat and promoting it. Like, they're getting free pub every show. It's crazy. Right. He's back with another one.
You remember Don Burr, Detroit versus everybody?
Oh,
Do you see him promoting Detroit anymore? He said, I need to be paid to promote Detroit.
Yeah, for sure. Brother Bob comes back and says, nails Vish and Purdy's second agent. He's calling you Purdy's second agent, I guess. Good show, pig in a pickle.
There you go.
And then 49ers Daddy says, Larry, I thought last night you said Purdy would look awful. Did he say it? I don't know. I didn't see it.
I can't believe I would say that. I doubt it.
And how many more practices like this until meritocracy kicks in for QB1 reps? Okay, well, let's talk about
we're fracturing.
First day back. Let's talk about Brock's first day back right here. We'll get into it. We'll give you all of our opinions, and it flows perfectly with 49er Daddy's comment here. So we'll start with you, Larry. You are the one that is there front and center. I've purposefully not watched any of your stuff today because I want a fresh take from Larry and what he thought. I've heard everybody else. I've gotten the text messages from people that were there. I want to know what Larry saw today from Brock Purdy, QB1, in his first practice.
Well, here's the thing. Camp, I've done many, many shows where I've ripped the hell out of camp stats. And before we went live, I kind of talked a little bit about it with Jesse, just that, the running back goes on a little sweep to the right, and here comes Oren Burks, and he sprints up, and they run past each other, and the running back runs a few yards. And it's like, well, is that a tackle by Oren Burks? Is it a great run by the running back? Or a sack? Here comes Drake Jackson off the edge, and he's standing right next to Trey Lance, but then Lance kind of moves around him and throws a pass down the field, and people are like, oh, nice completion by Lance. No, that was probably a sack by Drake Jackson. So the camp stats, there's nothing more flawed than camp stats. But as far as what did we want to see today from Brock, and to me, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I feel really strongly about this. If Brock had come out and gone 10 for 10, but his ball wobbled and it didn't quite reach the sideline, and he was underthrowing the receivers down the field, and it looked like his arm was maybe, let's say, even 90% of what it was last year, I would be way more negative than if he had a day that he actually had, which was he completed 3 of 10. He had two that he hit Jennings and Kittle on the hands, and they just dropped it. Normally they would make those catches. So he was roughly 5 of 10, but let's just say what it actually was, which was 3 of 10 with but Brock, unlike Darnold and Lance and Allen, was like, he kind of knew what people wanted to see. And I don't know if it was, when I say people, if he was talking about us, the media, or us, the fans, or the Niner coaches, or his teammates, but he was like, I'm taking shots down the field. I'm letting it rip. And he went up top to Debo, overthrew him by like 5 yards. And I think when I'm watching that, I don't know who was standing next to me. I think it was Guy Haberman. I said to him, I'm like, you know what? When you're going deep, the last thing you want to put on film is that you underthrew the deep ball when you're coming off the elbow surgery. So he's probably not even really trying to connect as much as he just wants to outthrow the receiver. So he threw 2 just absolute, go route deep balls and overthrew both receivers. And then he threw a deep ball in the middle of the field that should have been caught by Ayuk, but it was high and it went off his hands, or maybe went over him. But those 3 balls showed, I think, almost better looking arm strength than I saw from him at any point at Iowa State or last year. So I look at it as a huge, great day for Brock Purdy. Why? Because he absolutely had great zip on his passes, and he threw the deep ball well, and he showed a bigger arm than he showed last year. And then when we talked to him after the practice, he was in a great frame of mind, and he was like, hey, I wanted to let it rip, and I went to Jacksonville. You guys knew, we talked about this. He went back to Jacksonville, a couple weeks ago, to kind of work with those same 2 coaches. One's a doctor, one's a coach, I believe. And that's where he was like, one, make sure his mechanics were refined before he really let it rip. And that was the term he used today. He's like, I went to Jacksonville, and I asked him about it. I go, what was that return trip to Jacksonville like? And he's like, hey, I just wanted to go there and work with those guys again. And before I really let it rip, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it the right way, and the right way mechanically, and with a doctor right there and the coach right there and that kind of thing. So he kind of explained it, and his mindset with all the other answers that he gave was so calm, so confident, that I looked at today as just an overwhelming positive day. And the players who went to the podium after the practice kind of, they agreed, thought that it was a great day for Purdy. And then I'm reading some of the, the reviews. It's like, really bad day for Purdy, and he if he looks like this, he won't be able to start, and all this. Like, and it's like, wait a second, guys, we know that Brock is the highest percentage thrower. He's the highest completion percentage guy of Trey, Sam, and Allen. He's the guy that throws with the best timing of those 3 quarterbacks. He's the guy that throws with the best touch. He's the guy that has all the ability to complete. I mean, Brock's a 67, 68% completion percentage guy. Trey is like around in the 50s. Darnold and Allen are not a whole lot. They're definitely lower than Brock. So I didn't need a high percentage. I needed to see no diminished arm talent. And that's what I saw. So from my perspective, I thought today was hugely successful. And it just seems to me that the people that didn't saw it the other way, I would accuse them of moving the goalposts. It's like, if this guy was rag armed and completed 9 of 10, you'd be sitting there going, you know what? His arm looked kind of weak, but 3 of 10 and he showed a big arm, and it was like, yeah, but he barely completed anything, and he threw an interception, and he was 3 of 10. So what is it? Is it completion percentage you want to see, or arm strength? For me, I wanted to see arm strength, and I saw it, so I felt good.
Vish, based off of what you've heard from Larry and heard from Twitter and everything else that has come through today, how do you feel, just as a outside of observer, about Brock and his first day back?
I think this is kind of what we expected with him coming back, right? This is conversations we had this offseason. And I think a lot of the conversations just didn't trend this way because we didn't expect him to come back this early. But we constantly talked about, hey, what happens when he comes back if he only has 2 weeks to practice? Because this is how I thought it would look. When I was talking about it, I thought this is how it would look. Now, the nice thing for him is that he has come back, 2 weeks earlier than anybody expected. So we're hoping for gradual improvement. But I agree with what Krug said. There were 2 important things for Brock Purdy to show in this practice. And I do think he showed them both. One was that he was fully healthy and the arm wasn't bothering him. And then 2, that he could make it out of the practice healthy. He did both of those things. Now, he didn't play well in the practice, right? It sounds like he had a poor day in terms of completing passes and stuff like that. Well, that's a bad practice. If this continues, then yeah, we need to have a larger problem about it. Right now, I think it's just the first practice of a guy who's rusty and has not played football for a long time, and that's kind of where we are. Now, I will add to this by saying that there was a dichotomy pointed out specifically by my man Marco Martinez, shout out to him, in some of the coverage from the Niners beat and how they covered this situation with Brock Purdy versus not even you, Krug, just the beat specifically. The guys who were the reporters, not the columnist / YouTube host / analyst / part-time radio host /
Picking a pickle.
Picking a pickle sponsor. But those guys, in terms of how they covered the 2 situations, and I will say I 100% agree. There are certain gripes I have with it, but what I will say is that I'm not going to compensate because I think Trey Lance was covered unfairly and covered Brock Purdy unfairly in this situation. I think for a guy returning from injury, this was a reasonable expectation. The most important thing is, 1, he looks healthy, and 2, he made it out of the practice healthy. The rest of it, we're going to have opportunities to discuss as camp continues. We'll see him in the preseason, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I said yesterday with Grant, and I'm sure I said it during the call-in show last night that I had, was we've got to be patient with Brock. You can't just expect him to come in day one, fresh off of trying to get his arm back with really no competition reps, and just expect that it's going to look incredible. He's going to be completing all of his throws and everything's going to be on track and look amazing. That's not a fair expectation. I agree with Vish and Marco, who brought it up earlier, that just be consistent. My biggest thing is I'm not here to dictate how people cover the team. They can cover the team and the players however they want. It is their prerogative. I would just ask for consistency. And I'm not saying consistency across the board because everybody covers the team differently. I mean it from the stance of however you covered Trey Lance in the OTAs when he struggled and was coming off of an injury, I want you to give that same energy to Brock. So if you covered it and said, hey, he's coming back from an injury, he deserves grace, I'm encouraged because the mechanics look good, then do the same thing for Brock. Be encouraged, not necessarily based off the stats, but like Krug said, he came back from injury, made it through practice, the arm strength is there, everything else should fall into place. However, if you trashed Lance and said, oh, he can't even do it in t-shirts and shorts and didn't give him any grace, then keep that same energy for Purdy. However you decide to cover the team or talk about the team and its players, just make sure that energy is the same. That's all I ask. But I would say that based off of what I'm hearing, agree with Vish that maybe the practice wasn't good as far as the completion percentage. And if he had to start a game tomorrow, would you be excited or ready to go? No, but they don't have to start a game tomorrow. So I gave Trey Lance grace. I'm going to give Purdy the same grace in my coverage and say, hey, sounds like the arm strength is there. The accuracy was not there today. That will come together. Everything is going to be fine. Give him time to get back into things, shake off the rust, and we'll see a week from now. If every day for the next 5 practices look like this, okay, we can start to have a conversation. I don't expect that to be the case. So let's just make sure that whatever the energy is that we brought for one, we bring that same energy for everybody. And as long as we're doing that, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I just, if Brock Purdy completes 30% of his passes, we got a problem.
Sure, yeah, of course.
We got a problem. But we have a bigger problem. I mean, to me, okay, do you really think that's a problem though? I mean, do you really believe that Brock Purdy's the guy who's got the highest completion percentage of these 4 quarterbacks that are competing, just because on the first day coming back from a offseason where he didn't play a whole lot, completes 30% with a couple of uncharacteristic drops. He's, and when he didn't get an off season with his guys, with his receivers, I'll take that every day, because what I was really afraid of is that we were going to see him laboring, really working his throws. Like in the warm-up, guys, I was a little nervous because I felt like there was a little bit more body movement and a little bit more effort in his throws, and the throws were a little wobblier than what I saw last summer. And I felt like, there was a one drill where they're kind of shuffling towards the sideline, and then they're shuffling back from the sideline. They're throwing, and Brock wasn't even throwing a ball; he was just throwing against air. Right, the other guys all had a ball, and I was like, well, wait a second, how? This is not a good sign. Does that mean that he can't, what can't he do? And this is at the beginning of practice. I'm thinking, man, if he's in that part where he can't even throw a ball here, then maybe this is a really bad sign. But then as the practice went on, he was being treated, he was getting he was getting most of the first team reps, and he showed great zip on his passes, and it didn't look like he had to muscle it up or extra body motion. So as I said before, I was really pleasantly surprised, because I was really prepared for, like Shanahan or Lynch said, hey, we put the GPS monitor on him and the arm speed was the same. I don't know if you heard that, but I asked Lynch that question a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. And I, because to me, that's like it, right? It's like, if you can say he looks good, everybody can say all the right things. But if he goes out there and he's throwing 45 miles an hour and it's beneath NFL average speed, then and I know that DBs will be able to break on his ball, and he won't be able to fit it in those tight windows that the NFL has. And I've said it, we've all said it. Brock doesn't have arm strength to lose. So if he lost any, that was going to be a concern. And at least based on what I saw today. And that was just, it's a snapshot, right? I mean, who knows? Let's check it out tomorrow. Let's check it out the day after. But there was 2 or 3 things that I thought were key today. One was the way he threw it, the velocity. He really had some great zip on the pass. But then he also was asked afterwards about, hey, are you having any soreness? Are you having any, 2 days in a row? Or how's it feel? And that kind of thing. And he's like, all the pain and all the stiffness and all the soreness is out. And so we're talking about a guy who had surgery in March, and here we are, it's July, and he's on the field with the ones. So I thought there was a very good chance he would start this camp on the PUP, and that maybe August 15th, something like that, August 20th, somewhere in there, they would take him off the PUP and maybe try to kind of rush him back for week 1 against the Steelers. And then we would be this like 11th hour thing. Is he ready? Is he not? I thought that's the way it was going to go, but clearly he's ahead of schedule, and he did all the things today that would tell you that his arm strength is at least as good, if not better. I mean, the other thing is we're dealing with a young player who's getting bigger, stronger, and normally without this injury, you would expect him to get a little bit better, right? He's a year 2 in the system, a little bit stronger, NFL weight room, biggest improvement you physically see in football players is typically year 1 to year 2. So like there's reasons to think that he would improve physically. And then the elbow surgery was reasons to believe that he would be diminished physically. And like, where would it meet? And to me, he looks a little bit better physically than what I remember him from last year. But it was just day 1. But then hearing him talk about his process and how his body's feeling, I thought that was the other positive. So, but once again, if he completes 30% of his passes, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, listen, let's keep it a buck. 30% is not good. It's not good.
It's not
But
doable.
in day 1, it's not panic mode either. And I think that's where we have to be. And realistically, we talked about it a little bit backstage. We can get into the other quarterbacks here in a second, but it's not panic mode for any of them. They don't even have pads on yet. They have 0 pads on yet.
So can we go there?
Practice.
We go there? I've taken.
Let me do this. Let me do this real quick, Vish. Let me just run through these real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they get backed up, and we'll be here for an hour every time that these things come through. So I'm going to run through these super chats real quick, and then you hold your thought. Right. Larry, I think they're coming for you in the super chat, so be prepared. Kless says the best trio on the tube, badass, pig in a pickle, gonna be the biggest barbecue chain in America pretty soon, for sure. At this rate, it may be. Brother Bob says, you're spinning. This is too much. Pig in a pickle. 49ers daddy says, never seen anyone cap harder for a bad quarterback practice than Larry does for Purdy. Praising interceptions and overthrows. Laugh out loud. We sure Larry isn't related to Purdy. Larry, I'll let you rebuttal.
Oh gosh.
If you want to, you may not want to. You don't have to, but I want to give you your shot.
You know what? I think the guy who's the number one guy in this space is Grant. And Grant, tweeted out and probably did videos saying this was disappointing. And a lot of these people don't read. I don't know if they will admit it, but they are very much shaped by Grant's opinions. If Grant came out and said, you know what, Brock was great, then I think they would be saying Brock is great because they weren't there and I was there. So, and that to me, I mean, how can you sit there and so where you get, I know where I'm getting my information. Where are you getting yours? And you're getting it from Grant. And I all I can say is I love Grant, but I think Grant's moving the goalposts on this thing. We're told, who's got the higher completion percentage, Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? Well, it's been Brock Purdy. So the whole debate in the offseason has been this, the Ryan Hensley dink and dunk. He doesn't have enough arm. Well, today he came out and he showed not only that he took shots down the field the other guys didn't take, but he had terrific arm strength, incredible arm strength, really, compared to what we saw a year ago, and definitely incredible compared to what we saw at Iowa State. But now it's back to completion percentage. So what is it? Is it completion percentage or is it arm strength? Did you really expect the guy who didn't play this entire offseason for the most part to step in and be so dialed in with his receivers that he's going to complete 74%? And why is it that now completion percentage is so vital when before the narrative was, Brock completes a higher percentage, but does he really have the arm strength? Does he really have the skills? He had success, but is it sustainable? And it's like, okay, now you've had Alex Smith come out and tell Mayoko that he believes that processing, accuracy, and timing are the 3 biggest elements of being a pro quarterback, that Brock has it, and that he believes it's sustainable. Now we're seeing Brock throw with great arm action, speed, and it's like because he completed a low percentage, if he mix in those 2 drops and give him 2 less drops, now he's right at where Trey was at, 50%. So what were we expecting today? So it had to be the only way this was going to be a success was if he completed 70% of his passes and had awesome arm strength. He had awesome arm strength, and that is that's the story. The rest of this is just kind of like, let's see. I'll acknowledge this, that if he can't complete more than 30% of his passes, that's a problem. But I need some of you guys to admit that if the guy throws it the way he threw it today, arm strength wise, then he's got requisite arm strength and he's not diminished. And Grant asked the question. I wanted to ask it, but Grant jumped in with the question. Has Kyle? I was going to go with your question, Jesse. I sent you guys a note. I'm like, hey, you guys have a question that you'd like to hear asked, and you guys said, hey, I'd like to hear. Has Kyle told him that he's going to be starting week 1 at Heinz Field? And before I could get to that, Grant asked that question. I was going to follow up with, do you, Brock, expect to start week 1? Because he said, no, nothing's been – he basically kind of poo-pooed it and was like, yeah, nothing's been decided and it's too far out and so on. And I thought that's what he would say, but I wanted to follow up with, do you expect to start in that game? But then I was like, well, wait a second. I also want to ask about Jacksonville. So I went in that direction. But I thought it was a success because, as I said, to me, the arm strength is the issue, the primary issue. I think Brock's going to complete a decent percentage. I think he can process. I think he's accurate. I think he's got good timing. It's all about, does he have requisite arm strength post-surgery? I have not wavered. I told Vish that. I told you that, Jesse, that was my big question, and that Lynch can say whatever he wants and Shanahan can say whatever he wants until I put my eyes on the quarterback and I can see firsthand for myself how he throws it. I wasn't going to be satisfied. Today I got that opportunity, and I was more than satisfied, and I am an honest person. I don't need Brock Purdy to start. I really don't. If Trey Lance is better, I'm fine with Trey Lance starting. I like Trey Lance. I believe both guys are franchise quarterbacks. So I'm cool with, if Brock's diminished, Brock's diminished. He's not just if he's not, he's not. I'm not one of these people that I need to have Brock start. I'm not. My name is not Purdy. So I'm not related to Brock. I don't need Brock to start.
It does have a good ring to it.
I think Brock is the better quarterback right now, but I'm not even convinced that Brock is going to, when it's all said and done and these guys have their career and we look back at it, I'm not convinced that Brock's going to be better than Trey. I'm not. I think Trey is a really good prospect, and that's why it scares the hell out of me when people discuss on the radio, driving home, listening to some of the stuff on 95.7 The Game, about trading Sam or trading Brock, and what's somehow moving on from Trey. To me, it makes me real nervous because I really believe that if the Niners trade Trey Lance, they're going to rue the day they did, because I really believe he's going to get there. I just don't know when it's going to be. If you said to me, make a prediction on it, I would say that if he got consistent time, we would start to see the real special attributes probably after 10 to 15 games. That's what I would guess.
All right, that's your rebuttal to all of them, because there's some similar ones in here. So
right,
Brother Bob says, Larry, I want what you're smoking, please. Pig in a pickle.
He wants that pickle.
He does want the pickle. Pause. 49ers Daddy says, Vish with the facts. Where is Trey's praise? Mechanics were what we want to see improvement on. Did he still have a great release today?
He did.
Well, okay.
He did. And let's talk about that for a second. It's the resting point. What I see is the change. Tell me if you guys see the same thing. What I see as the major change with Christensen is the resting point to the release point is there's less of a distance. So the resting point used to be lower, closer to the hip, and then he would bring it back in a loop, get to the release point up here. Okay, now I'm seeing a quarterback. He's not quite Aaron Rodgers under Jeff Tedford, but instead of resting the ball here, it's resting up here. And it's a shorter distance to the release point. And it's smoother, and he hasn't lost arm strength. So it's a cleaner motion. It's kind of like a golf swing without a hitch. It's almost like a baseball player who he keeps his hands here and then has to bring them back and then like here to swing. Good fastball. He's always late. So, get your hands back here. Well, Trey's kind of now, when he drops back to pass, he's got that thing. It's not like up by his ear, but it's like right around his shoulder and, right around here. And then he's got less of a distance from here to his release point. I think it's cleaner. I think it's more efficient. Now the question is, can he repeat it under duress? But to me, I see a vastly improved mechanical adjustment there from last year.
Yeah,
Vish,
the
go ahead.
biggest difference is what you talk about, Jesse, right? He used to be very up and down with how he threw the ball, and you would see him come up and down as he threw it, and it would cause the ball to either come down or go straight up because he was launching it at inconsistent points. And now it's everything is with his body. The guy who went on with Grant, was it Locked In QB? He actually explained it very well with how he's using his longest lever, which is his arm to sequence, and he's throwing with his body. So I think naturally what you're seeing, Krug, is instead of this, where it's coming so up and down, you're seeing his release being shortened, and you're seeing it being smoother because he's brought it a little bit down, and it's with his body. I'm no expert, so you should definitely listen to that guy explain it. He explains it a lot better. But yeah.
All right, Brother Bob says, I'm patient with Brock, but also honest. He didn't look good today. Just say it. He's rusty AF, period. Don't fake the funk. Hey, Ryan is pig in a pickle.
Can I respond to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm a little sick of how this entire quarterback competition has been covered the last 2 days. I think what's been talked about with Brock both ways has been pretty bad. I think even the other quarterbacks, the way it's been discussed has been bad. Krug, I wanted to ask you this. How many years have you been going to camp?
I mean, as a media member, just period. I mean, I've went to camp in Rockland. I mean, going back to college. I mean, since 1990.
So we can say what, 40 years, 30 years?
30 years, maybe.
Yeah, 30 years. All right. So 30 years, right? In the first 2 days of camp, how many times in those 30 years have you seen the offense win the day?
How many times have I what?
How many times in the first 2 days of camp, in your 30 years you've gone to camp, have you seen the offense win the day in the first 2 days?
Never.
This is my problem, right?
Defense is always ahead of offense, typically.
Right. And so there's this quarterback. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, offense is about precision, and defense is about effort and accountability. So it takes longer to coordinate precision.
Right. Exactly. 100%. And so when you add those things together, you talk about the fact that the pads are out. You're talking about the offense is rehearsing precision, rehearsing details, rehearsing timing, and the defense is not rehearsing that as much. They're rehearsing being reactionary into getting to spots. They're always going to have more success. So I've had an issue with how this entire thing has been talked about the last 2 days, because it's turned into an automatic evaluation, like every single rep, every single day, the last 2 days. When to me, I'll tell you what are the relevant things I've learned from camp over the last 2 days. I haven't learned anything about this quarterback competition yet. I've learned 1, Brock Purdy is healthy. I've learned 2, his arm strength hasn't diminished. I've heard 3, Trey Lance's mechanics have improved. Those are the kinds of things I've learned, right? I've learned that Ty Davis-Price looks more explosive. I've learned that a few guys have changed their bodies. I saw what happened with Marcelino McCurry-Ball. These are the observations that we should be getting in the first 2 days of camp. It does not matter if the quarterback is 3 for 10 or if he's 3 for 12. I promise, even if Brock Purdy is throwing the football as poorly as he threw it today, he's not going to throw 3 for 10 in a game, because you know what Kyle Shanahan's going to do when he sees Brock Purdy is 2 for 4? He's going to say, okay, Brock Purdy, screen to Debo, screen to Christian McCaffrey, flat to Kittle, bootleg. Next thing you know, Brock Purdy is 9 for 11. He's thrown the ball 2 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. We've seen him do this for Jimmy Garoppolo. So completion percentage with all of these guys is somewhat irrelevant, because they're not going to do that in practice. In practice, they're working on actual things. They don't worry about the stats. So that's one thing with the practice stats. The other thing is the substantive information that we should be consuming right now is how are players looking, who's in shape, who's not in shape. Shouldn't be about, well, this quarterback's doing this quarterback's doing that, because none of them have had enough reps to be playing well against this defense. And when you add in the offensive line, right, I've seen offensive line conversation too. Those guys have no chance without pads blocking those guys. No chance. It's a big disadvantage. And I see people like, oh, they're not going to be good at offensive line. Well, wait till the pads come on, wait till they get some synchronization, and then we can talk about these things. So I think the way the camp has been covered so far, even in the last 2 days, and I know, Krug, that you are a person covering the camp. I don't think you have been subject to doing this, but I think it's been very much, it's created this vitriol of going back and forth and pushing certain agendas about quarterbacks when we really haven't gotten substantive information about any of these guys yet in this offense, whether that's Trey Lance, whether that's Sam Darnold, whether that's Brock Purdy. What we can see are the changes with their bodies and those kinds of things. Other than that, we are going to find all of that out. We have a month to see all of that. But I don't understand why people are so obsessed with today pushing a certain narrative on any quarterback situation that's going on right now. Like, there's no way anybody couldn't be able to make real, authentic, educated observations and draw conclusions from those observations based on the last 2 days. It just doesn't happen. And so that's where Krug, it's one of those things where you've been to camp, you know what it looks like, you know what they're looking for on those first 2 days. Jesse, you're going to have an opportunity to actually go when practice is starting to pick up, the pads get on, people are starting to get a little pissed off about having to live together and see each other all the time. That's when you're going to see the real stuff in camp. But right now, it's all about, well, who's in shape? Who looks good? Who are the coaches and players talking about, well, they said that guy looks really good? Who is everybody talking about saying, oh, look at how he's changed? Those are the pieces of information that we are going to glean in the first week of camp. Not, hey, Brock Purdy's 3 for 10, bench him tomorrow. Trey Lance is only 50%. Like, no, you can't play. Sam Darnold, like, no.
Yeah, the early camp, and I'll just to piggyback that, the early camp, you should own. I mean, I don't even. I'm disgusted with myself that I even took out a pen. You know what I mean? Because it's like I would never take out a pen normally, but there's so much emphasis now on the exact stats and the exact. And I hear some of the things. Well, it was on a 2nd and 5 play, and he hit him for 17, and it's like. And it sounds very detailed, and it's like, whoa, that guy's all over it. I better be all over it as well. But, you know, my instincts tell me the only things that matter are the things. It's like if you're watching a football game with the sound off in the back of a room. If like you can see who makes a great play from like 25 feet away with the sound off, that's what you should be noticing in camp. Just the true outliers. Like for me, like what you should take away from the first 2 days of camp is that Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel look primed for monster years. That to me is real. And you could scout that from a satellite. You know what I mean? These guys are in shape and going for the money. And, you know, and maybe that's too callous, but going for the ring, whatever you want. They both showed up to get it, you know, to flat out get it. And that to me is the most exciting thing, because we know they're good football players, but if these guys can emerge as great players and through a couple days they look like they're primed for great years, if Deebo's great, if we get the best of Deebo and the best of Ayuk, this team's likely going to the bowl. I mean, barring massive injuries. I mean, these are great young core players, and if they can get the very best out of their 2, you know, wideouts, this is one of the best teams in pro football, and the Niners could make a sizable jump forward. To me, that's the real. Right? That's what I got out of the first 2 days more than anything. So those guys look awesome.
It's a step further. If those guys look really good, there's a lot of financial decisions that the 49ers can make to move on from some veteran offensive players who are still highly paid and still productive, but maybe not as young and as ascending as Deebo and Ayuk. And you can pay those 2 guys and not pay a few others there.
Brandon Ayuk better be a captain this year. Said it last year, saying it again this year. It sounds like he is clearly setting a tempo that other people are trying to catch up with. This man deserves to be a captain. He deserves a payday. He deserves the breakout year that's about to come his way. I'm excited for Brandon Ayuk. I do want to touch on something that Vish glossed over throughout his soliloquy there. He talked about how if Brock Purdy, if things look good for Brock Purdy and the things that we wanted to see for Brock Purdy are there, and we can separate that from the stats, we should also be able to do the same thing for Trey Lance, because the things that we talked about was mechanically, it looked awful. That is not the case. He throws the ball too hard. That is not the case. Can he be accurate on checkdowns? The answer so far is yes. And can he throw a spiral consistently? It sounds like those things are happening. So all the things that we were concerned about with both of those players, Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, regardless of what numbers are showing, regardless of any of that, it sounds like we've come out of these 2 days knowing that both of them are in a really, really good spot to be a launching point or a starting point, the best players that they can be throughout this camp and going into the future. And that is great to hear regardless. So I think that's where we're at.
What about my guy, Sam Darnold? Come on.
Listen,
give my guy, Sam Darnold.
Sam Rodland, this might be Sam himself saying Darnold will be QB1 regardless of who's healthy. No, he won't.
How nice was the out route to Debo today, Krueger?
Well, I mean, once again, do we like camp stats? I mean, because if camp stats mean a lot, then Brandon Allen and Sam Darnold were the two best quarterbacks on the field today because they had the best stats. They had the most completions. They made the most plays. But
who threw the ball the best?
Darnold had some really good throws. I mean, Brandon Allen is not in the category of these other guys. I mean, Brandon Allen is just not. He's a smaller guy with a smaller arm. He doesn't try to throw the ball down the field as much. When he does, he kind of sprays it. His accuracy, he's more Mullins-esque. He's if you get beyond 10 to 12 yards down the field, he kind of sprays it. He gets it in the area, but it's not necessarily on the guy's hands. Where Darnold's got a little bit better accuracy on the deep stuff, but to me, it's just about inconsistency. And I just think that that's what it's always been about for Sam. And that's kind of what I still see is I see some really nice plays, but I see some inconsistency.
Krug, let me ask you two questions, right? You've been around them. You've been around a lot of different 49ers quarterbacks in your life, right? Two questions about these four quarterbacks when you saw them in practice. One, when you saw them warming up and all of that, who was the guy that looked like the quarterback? Like, who was the guy that when you saw all four of them throwing side by side warming up, you were like, okay, he spins it a little bit better than those other guys. Like, whoa, he's a little bit more naturally talented in how he throws it. Was there a guy or was there not a guy that stood out to you that way with those four? And then two, who was the guy that seemed to, be the quarterback where everybody seemed to, rally around that guy? Or who was the guy that like everybody was looking to where it was like he wasn't necessarily pressing leadership, but he had that command as the quarterback? Or was there not a guy that you got that vibe from today?
Well, I mean, this is tough because it's like as a former scout, I really believe let your eyes tell your brain what you see. Don't do it the other way around. But it's hard when you talk to the players. To me, Brock has got a command in the huddle that, I've had everybody from Trent Williams to George Kittle to Ray McLeod, where he'll motherfuck you. He'll tell you to your face, hey, what's up? Where Trey's more respectful. Trey's a nicer guy. Trey's a younger guy. He's not quite in that mode yet. He's still learning. The other two guys, I don't see that from. I think Sam's a laid-back Southern California guy. I don't know a lot about Brandon Allen. So I would say in the huddle, Brock is the guy that has the command. I think Brock is the guy that has the most, pelts on the wall as far as success with this team, right? Based on what he did last year, winning a couple playoff games, stepping in December. But as far as who looks like the quarterback, I would say Trey. As far as who looks the part, Trey's 6'4". He's super athletic. And I think there's the players really like Trey, so I think there's a lot of guys in the room that really are rooting for Trey to have success as a professional. And I think he's a very likable young guy. So I get the sense that Brock is the guy that if they had to put money on it, they would probably go with Brock. But I think the Niners have two starting caliber quarterbacks, Brock and Trey. I really believe that, and I think Sam is kind of trying to salvage a failed career to this point, and Allen I think is, to me, I look at two starting quarterbacks, a guy who's maybe a little broken in Darnold, and a backup quarterback in Allen.
All right, fair enough.
All right.
Niner Cali Boy says, why do we need wide receivers on the field and plays to be called to test arm strength? if we're judging accuracy. Put him on the what's GL? Do you guys
Goal line?
Oh, put him on the goal line and let him air it out for that. I see what you're saying. Okay. So
He's
basically
talking
just
about
like
those,
how
like,
far can he
Madden
throw the ball
videos,
is what
yeah.
he's saying. Okay. All right, I got you. Brother Bob says, I see Hammerhead Lombardi. I'm not gonna listen. I'm not a big fan of Lombardi. I don't think anybody would say that I am if they know me, but I'm also not gonna disrespect a man's last name. I think that's going to a whole different thing. So
I think Larry just got complimented. I'm sure he loves being
Kevin's
called
dad.
Kevin's
Yeah.
dad naturally. So
He's talking about Hammer, Jack Hammer, Lombardi, and then Kevin's dad. Don't blame Grant for Brock Purdy's poor play. Stop moving the goalpost. Stop moving the goalpost for your client. Just admit it. He looked bad. Pig in a pickle. There you go.
If you just keep throwing donations and speak it a number of times, you'll be right.
This has been the Brother Bob versus Krug show so far, to be honest.
It really is. It's actually entertaining. Official B&A Music says throwing a ball to 30 yards to Darnold's enemy is something to prop up. Yes, it's day one, but oversell it like he had an awesome day. I feel like the wording's
I think he's
messed up.
talking about Darnold's enemies being the ghosts, and so he's saying he.
I see. Okay.
30 yards.
I see. This is the thing: is I know. Yeah, I know. Official B&A Music is always very witty and will make you laugh, and so I'm like, I had to have missed something with this. Yes. Okay, I got you. B&A Music.
Can we disagree though, guys? I mean, come on, let's be intellectually honest here. If Brock had looked kind of rag armish, that would have been that's a way worse situation than whatever percentage he completed. I'll grant you that 30% sucks, and that it's not. And if that's what it was going forward, that he won't. You can't be a quarterback in the NFL if you complete 30%. But today, coming off this surgery, it's really about, does the guy still have requisite arm strength? And I think he demonstrated that today. So that's why I'm positive about today, because that's what I wanted to get out of today. And I'm not moving the goalposts. I said that before practice. Hey, I don't care how many he completes. I just don't want to see like lots of motion and like really working it hard to kind of get to last year's arm strength. I want to see the same motion, but the same arm strength or better. And that's what we got.
I will say this, because I think from a football standpoint, all three of us agree this practice was not a big deal. And in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be a footnote when we talk about the story of this season, the story of training camp, all of those things. But I do think from like an optics perspective, purely, it was somewhat of a catastrophe just because the poor completion percentage in the stats and the way you could have reported it created just a lot more disjointed fans where nobody really knows. Now it's like Brock played poorly, so now everybody's like, see, Trey has a chance or Darnold has, you know what I mean? And I think from a pure optics standpoint, if Brock came in today and everybody was declaring him the starting quarterback, and Larry is right? Like, even if he had a good statistical practice and it was reported a certain way, it wouldn't matter if the ball was fluttering, his arm looked shot. He looked like Christian Ponder after 2, shoulder surgeries, right? But I do think if his stats were good and all of that, it would have been a nice sell to kind of settle this circus of a quarterback situation, because everybody would have been like, see, Brock's healthy, and look, he just lit it up in practice. So now for a little while at least, there would be like, hey, we can sell Brock, and everybody's behind that. Now, so I don't, maybe catastrophe a little too harsh, but I do think, like, from a pure optics of how we can sell this to the media, not that Kyle Shanahan necessarily cares about that or even Brock Purdy cares about that, but just from that standpoint, I do think this practice wasn't the best look, because you never want to, the quarterback's the most marketable player on your team. You never want to be selling, hey, my quarterback didn't have a good practice, even though it's bound to happen in every offseason.
Kevin says, I've been picking pickles. This is great. I've been picking pickles for a solid 5 years straight. Larry, thank you for raising awareness for not only pigs, but pickles.
You're welcome.
It's a very solid comment. Strong comment. Niner Matt Actually, I'm going to save this one because that's kind of the next topic. Brother Bob says, that's my point, Nails. Be honest both ways. Listen, I'm not even saying be honest both ways. I'm saying be consistent. And one thing I'll say about Grant is Grant definitely the day in OTAs where Trey Lance struggled. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's a Trey guy, whatever. The day that he struggled in OTAs, he's like, that was the most underwhelming practice I have ever seen. And he called Trey Lance out for it. So he's being very consistent with Brock Purdy also. So I don't have an issue if you're going to call either of them out, just do it equally. And I feel like Grant has done that. I feel like I honestly don't remember your take in OTAs, Larry. So I'm not going to say, hey, you're remaining consistent. I would assume that you didn't rip him in OTAs. And so if you didn't, then you're remaining consistent. But there are definitely people out here that are not remaining consistent. And that is a fact.
I will attest because me and Larry did stream a lot during that time as well. Larry was very positive about Trey Lance.
So then yeah. Exactly. So then just be consistent. So Larry was consistent then. Grant's consistent from then. Some people are not doing that. And it is very clear.
The oddity here is that you guys, Jesse and Grant, don't believe that Trey and Brock are franchise quarterbacks, and I do. And that's the thing that is really that gets me. It's like, wait a second. I'm the guy that thinks that both guys are franchise quarterbacks. One guy's doing it, and one guy I believe is going to do it. But, I asked you guys both this question. Do you think these guys are franchise quarterbacks, one or neither? And you guys both went with neither. And I'm going with both.
Well, hold on.
But I'm the anti-Trey.
Hold on. Now, don't paint me in a corner here. First of all, I'm going to say this.
Because I said one or the other. You had to go one or the other.
Neither. Yeah. So there was no in between. So let's make sure we're clear about that. But to be fair, I will clarify. It is so to me, it's all in how you look at a franchise quarterback, right? Because some people would say that your boy right now, I say your boy Vish, because Dak seems to be the guy that you're like, he's the one in the future if this doesn't work out. A lot of people would look at Dak and say, because he's borderline top 10 every year, that he's a franchise quarterback. I would disagree with that. However, if the question is, hey, let's assume Dak's a franchise quarterback, do you think both of these quarterbacks can potentially get to that level? I would say, yeah, I think there's potential for that for sure. But the way that I define franchise quarterback is those guys that are every year locks for top 10. And when it's all said and done, they're likely going to be top 7 year in and year out. Some people are near the top 10. Kirk Cousins is another one. They'll touch the top 10. Next year, they're out of the top 10. They're kind of, near it. That's not a franchise quarterback to me. I think you can be in franchise purgatory if you pay a guy like that because you're giving them top tier money, but they're not necessarily top tier talent. So I don't look at that as a franchise quarterback. So it's all about how you define franchise quarterback. And I'll ask you the question, Larry, how do you personally define franchise quarterback? Because I think that is important when we're talking about that and we're talking about that question.
See, there's the way you pay them, and that's the problem, is that there's too many overpaid quarterbacks because everybody's dreaming the dream. I don't think Dak Prescott's a franchise quarterback. I would define franchise quarterback as a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl. Now, it's a team sport, right? So 49ers have the number one defense in football. So it's like they don't quite need the same quarterback, talent to win a Super Bowl when you've got the number one defense than if you had like a mid-pack defense. But that would be my standard. I haven't really thought it through as far as exactly how I would define it. I guess you could be, super elitist about it and be like, well, a franchise quarterback's only a top 5 guy or something like that. Well, okay. If that's the definition for franchise quarterback, then I don't know that either Brock or Trey are going to be in that category. But I actually believe that both of them are on a franchise quarterback trajectory the way I define it, which is I think you can win a Super Bowl with these guys. I'm very convinced that you can win a Super Bowl with Brock, and I believe in Trey long term. I really do. I think he's got the traits to do it. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he's got the brain. And I think he's got all the things that you're looking for. I agree with Alex Smith. I think he's going to be able to process. I think he's going to be able to, I think football is important to him. So he's going to iron out the spots where he needs work. And I think when it's all said and done, Trey Lance is going to be a franchise quarterback too.
Do you think Joe Flacco was a franchise quarterback? I think that's a good litmus test.
Well, Joe Flacco had maybe the greatest arm of any quarterback of his era. I mean, Joe Flacco throws a rocket. I mean, just an absolute rocket.
That he did. And he won a Super Bowl.
And he was great that year. He was great that year, but he definitely didn't sustain it. But he had a franchise. I mean, once again, though, I mean, he was really he was supported by a tremendous football team. So I would say no. But he did win a Super Bowl. So he's like right on the cusp. And he for maybe that 1 year he might have been, but obviously he didn't sustain it.
Go ahead, Vish.
Yeah, what I was going to say was, I absolutely said that. If you want to ask me 100% unequivocally, I don't think either of these two guys are franchise quarterbacks. And if I had to put my odds on what I think is going to play out, I think the 49ers will be in the quarterback market in 2024. Yeah, I do think that. Now, in regard to this particular topic, I think the issue for Krug is that entire Trey Lance trade take made everybody automatically just bucket list him as anything he says about Trey Lance is negative and anything he says about Brock is positive. And I think that coinciding being so close, because I remember you were very high on Trey Lance in OTAs, and we were talking about these kinds of things, but I don't think people remember that simply because Krug just said he thought Trey Lance would be traded.
Right, but he said he thought the 49ers would trade Trey Lance. That's the distinction that I don't think anybody else picked up on. He
never said he would.
Yeah, exactly. That is a big difference. That is a huge difference. But everybody took it as he would, and that's what they ran with, and that's what the narratives turned into. The way I understood it was he thought the 49ers would. Just like I've also said, everybody paints me as like, you're the Trey Lance guy. Well, I've also said that if I'm the 49ers and if they truly believe Brock Purdy's the guy, then get rid of Trey Lance. So I'm not saying I would get rid of Trey Lance, but if I had the mindset the 49ers had, I'm not going to let anything get in the way of my franchise quarterback and his psyche. I'm just not doing it. So in that instance, I would trade Trey Lance. But nobody's going to say Jesse's saying that they should trade Trey Lance because they've already got the perception that I'm the Trey Lance guy, right? So it's all about what the perception is of you going into a comment and then how it grows legs and turns into its own thing. So it's interesting how those things happen.
I'd get Shanahan a time machine and go tell him to hang out with the right crowd in Cabo.
Bring in Stafford. AZ Gaming says, Larry, did you see any difference in Brock's velocity?
The ball that he threw to Ayuk, and if people were saying, oh, the practice was filmed, then you guys saw the ball to Ayuk. That was a rocket. That might have been the best. That might have been the highest velocity throw I've ever seen from Brock Purdy. I mean, that thing was an absolute rocket. And it wasn't necessarily a go pattern. I think it was kind of a deep cross or a post. And it was a little on the high side, but it was freaking unbelievable arm speed and ball speed. So
did you get behind him?
I was about, I was on the sideline and I was maybe, on the clock, I was probably at like 2:00 on the, I was a little bit off to the side there. And it was a phenomenal throw. But I also kind of think that, I want to see, and that was today. Let's see what it looks like over the next few days. Why? Because I think Brock also kind of knows that one of the big, these guys hear the noise. They know. He knows that, to me, when he was throwing those go patterns today, he knows he doesn't want to underthrow those, right? He knows everybody's watching, and he knows that everybody's questioning the arm strength. And so I don't even know that he was trying to complete those passes. He just wanted to outthrow his receivers. So he was just really letting it rip.
That part I agree. I think overthrowing them to throw it 50 yards, all of that was purposeful. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody told them just crank one out as far as you can throw it because they want that they want those optics, right? Like you want people to know he's healthy. You want people to know he's back. Well, how do we show that? Make him throw it 50 yards and have everybody tweet out, Brock Purdy just threw it 50 yards. Brock Purdy just threw it 50 yards. So yeah, I 100% believe.
We'll see what it looks like in the days ahead.
Larry, I'm going to give you a chance to clarify on this one before this turns into a shitstorm.
Oh God.
Art Martinez says, "Really, Larry, blaming Grant now?"
I'm just saying that we're moving the goalposts. We're talking about arm strength. We've talked about dink and dunk for weeks. We've talked about lack of arm strength. Are we talking about if you didn't like today's practice, he demonstrated arm strength. So now what are we talking about? Completion percentage? Really? So I didn't hear the entire, I've been doing my own thing today. So I didn't, Grant and I we did talk for a minute or two, but I did see his tweet where he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but it was like, this was not good and he's not ready and he's rusty or whatever. If he didn't like what he saw today, then what are you saying? Are you saying that you're worried that Brock Purdy, now the guy who's got the highest completion percentage of the four guys, can't complete passes? I think, it really comes down to arm strength. That's what we wanted to see today. That's what we saw today. So I'm shocked that I'd love to talk to Grant about it and say, why did you not like today? Now suddenly you care about completion percentage for a guy who had the highest completion percentage, and we were talking about dink and dunk, and do we want the big arm guy? Well, the guy who was dink and dunk showed the biggest arm today. He took shots down the field. And come on, let's be honest. Let's be intellectually honest about this. If you take shots on the third level, you're not going to complete the same passes if you swing it in the flat. The other quarterback swung it in the flat. Brock Purdy threw it down the field. It's there. It's there. So as far as blaming Grant, I'm just saying I'm blaming you guys for not watching it. How many of you that are saying definitively what happened today actually watched the practice, the whole thing? How many? I'd love to know. It's like if you're gonna say he looked bad today, put down he looked bad today and I watched the whole practice, or he looked bad today and I'm deriving this out of somebody else who watched the practice who I love and I'm regurgitating. So that's what I'm talking about.
I will say this.
Isn't that what we're doing on the show right now? Like that's literally me and Jesse. We're listening to what you have to say.
We are, yeah.
Kind of.
Well,
you're not regurgitating my takes. You're just listening to me give you my take, and you're commenting based on that. Right,
but we're commenting based on what you're seeing in practice, right?
But,
so I don't know if that's exactly fair.
Well, I'm just saying, how do you have the information that you have? Do you have it because you saw it? Or do you have it because somebody that you really like said it? There's a big difference there. No?
I have it because you, who I really like, told me. That's what I'm telling you, man.
But you're not tweeting it out. You're not going on other streams saying, hey, this is what happened. You're just listening to me tell you.
True, fair.
All I'm asking, some people are saying, hey, there's other ways to watch this stuff. And okay, that's all I'm saying. If you're going to say he looked terrible today, did you watch it? And if you didn't, shame on you. Right? Now you're coming strong with, he looked terrible. And how do you know that? How do you know that?
I will say this. I'll reiterate. I think Grant has been consistently hard on all of these guys, including Kyle Shanahan, which we'll get to here in a minute. Dude, it's so funny because every time we go into these things, Vish, and you and I have talked about this in the past, you and I are more like, hey, outline the show type guys where we give 5 topics, just, whatever. And then we always only end up getting through 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Where Larry, I know he never sends out topics before a show. It's like, I just jump on and he just starts firing. So we go. So I think it's interesting. We'll get through like 2 topics at this rate, but I will also say this.
Taking a sip of the water, he's ready to go.
Maybe all I'll say to all these people though is don't try to turn. Grant and I are good, so I'm good with him. He's good with me. I won't turn on him. He's not turning on me. So it's like do what you say what you want, do what you want. Go send him as many tweets or texts or whatever as you want. I'm going to see him tomorrow. So, we're going to talk face to face.
They're going to see him tomorrow, and then we might hear YouTube content creator fight, right? Like Jake Paul, like Logan Paul and KSI went at it.
There's no way.
Larry Krueger versus Grant Coe.
No, first of all, I got great respect for Grant. I'm just saying I saw his tweet, and his take was that Brock looked bad today. My take is that it was a great day for Brock. It wasn't a good day for Brock. It was a great day for Brock. So I don't know, I get it. Grant's got 60,000 subs and he's got a lot of fans. But LaJuan Collins, Grant's being consistent. Larry's not. No, I'm being very consistent. I've been consistent all year.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is just Grant has pull in the community because he does have a major reach. And so what he says holds more weight maybe than what other people are going to say because of that reach. And I think that is an accurate statement. I will also say this, and I'm not going to say who. I will, if we can talk backstage about who it is. I will say this, Larry. I think people can certainly watch and come away with a different opinion. There was somebody on the field that I know and trust that is not a content creator that told me he looked like dog shit today. So I'm not saying that person is accurate. All I'm saying is I think multiple people can look at things and come away with completely different outtakes based off of that. I will also say that most of the reporting, I think, has been more towards what you're saying, which is, hey, I didn't care about completion percentage. I didn't care about none of that. I'm strictly looking for, does he look healthy? And can he continue to, this is Grant's favorite saying, stack days and be healthy consistently without having to ice the arm or miss practices and those types of things. Right now, that is more important. And I respect that take and that opinion. I think it is a fair take and a fair opinion. So, all right.
I hear you. But I mean, to say someone looked like shit, I mean, that's not exactly the most technical. That's not necessarily a football term.
Well, I will say that this person is a football person, but that was the term that they used. He looked like dog shit is what he told me. So I'll tell you who afterwards. I'm not going to get into that here, but I'll just say that. Sam
I can't wait for after this show, man.
Sam said, when you're on bad team. Oh, this is, hold on a second. I want to make sure I didn't miss the last one. I feel like I did. Okay. No, I didn't. Okay. This was the Sam Darnold guy. Sam says, when you're on bad teams and playing from behind, you push the envelope and throw picks. Sam doesn't need to do that here. What don't you understand? Okay. So I will say this. At what point do we say, hey, this may be who Sam Darnold is? He is a little bit of a bonehead when it comes to decision making. He was a turnover machine in college. He has a major fumbling issue. I don't know what fumbling has to do with being behind. Sure, you can say interceptions and you're trying to force things, but fumbling is just you fumbling the football. They are very separate. And even at times, last year was a great example where people talked about this 5 or 6 game stretch that he went on. Why then, when they are winning a game against the Saints, does he throw for like 60 yards and 3 interceptions on 30% completion? Explain that to me. And then I can get behind the Sam Darnold thing. But I'm sorry, Sam Darnold, to this point, out of all 3 of these quarterbacks, we know more about. I'm not going to say that it's impossible for him to turn it around. I will give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I just think his chances of being good in this league and being reliable in this league based off the sample size is much smaller than what potentially can come from Brock Purdy or Trey Lance, because we don't have the same sample size here. There's a lot to like about both of those quarterbacks. We just need to see more. Sam, I've seen enough of that I know I do not want him to be the quarterback if we're choosing between the 3. And I think that's a completely fair thing to say. So,
once again, though, we're talking about a 25-year-old guy who's played for the Jets and the Panthers. I agree with you. I went through the all 22 of all of his Carolina starts last year because I just didn't want to talk any more about Sam Darnold, because I watched him at SC. I didn't like him. I felt like he turned it over a lot. I saw the whole ghost comment. I do agree that he was on a lot of bad Jets teams. The hardest thing to evaluate is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback, all that kind of stuff. It's all true. But what I saw with the with Carolina was a guy who was very inconsistent. He had some good moments, but the last game that he played, he turned it over 4 times, 2 fumbles, he actually had 3 turnovers. I think it was 1 fumble, but he fumbled 2 times, got 1 back. He threw 2 picks. Neither of them were like 3rd and long with the game on the line. They actually won the game, but he had 41 passing yards, and he was really inconsistent. He floated a deep ball over the middle. The Honey Badger picked it off. It was a 1st and 10 play. His second pick was a 2nd and 10 pass play where he hung the football. He didn't have great receivers, but this is what Sam Darnold has done a lot. He flashes some talent. He's got some size. He's got some athleticism. There's some likable traits, but it doesn't work out. And, I think he'll be better with the Niners because they have better weapons, but I just see huge periods of inconsistency, and I don't see any momentum towards really being special. Kyle, though, just did an interview with Mike Silver where he compared him to Steve Young. So, I think it's safe to say that I don't see it the same as Kyle, and that makes me think that Sam Darnold isn't going anywhere. When you're comparing a guy to Steve Young, right, and you just signed him, it makes me think that he might be here, and that kind of concerns me.
Yeah, for sure. I think I just want to say this real quick. I forget who it was, and I wish I could give them credit because they said it so eloquently yesterday. It was on the call-in show. They called Shanahan the great quarterback elevator, and I thought that was such a great way to put it. He wasn't saying he's a developer or anything like that. He called him an elevator. And that is something I do believe we could see with Sam Darnold. I think Sam could play his best football here. But that does not all of a sudden make Sam Darnold a good quarterback. There is a difference. And so I want to clarify. I'm not saying he can't be successful. I'm on record saying, hey, if I tell you the 49ers go to the NFC Championship, but don't tell you the quarterback, but then I, at the end, say, okay, well, it was Sam Darnold. You'd be like, yeah, I could see a path for that. Or, hey, it's Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. You're like, yeah, I could see a path for that. The team is that good, and the coach is that good at elevating quarterback play that you can see a path for any of these quarterbacks playing and the team going very far in the playoffs. So I want to clarify my stance on Sam Darnold. Go ahead, Vish.
Yeah, I'll say this about Sam Darnold. Look, 55 games have not been good. I've never been the biggest fan of Sam Darnold. I'm sure there's a bunch of old tweets you can pull up of me probably hating on Sam Darnold, in fact. But look, those situations, the situation with the Jets sucked. It sucked. They had a decent situation his rookie year with Todd Bowles and Jeremy Bates. He actually played very well. People point to the stretch of football that Sam Darnold played well in his career as last year. They're not doing their research. Sam Darnold did not play that well last year. The best stretch of football in Sam Darnold's career is that back half of his rookie season. He played really well at Green Bay versus Rodgers. He had a couple more games, couple of division games. He played very well. That's the best stretch in his career. And in that stretch, his offensive coordinator was Jeremy Bates, who coached under Mike Shanahan. He was his quarterback's coach in Denver for a little while. So that's really the best stretch of Sam Darnold's quarterback career. That was when he had his moments where we said, hey, that's Sam Darnold, 3rd pick out of the draft from USC, could be a franchise quarterback. Then he had that crappy year with Mono, the first year with Adam Gase. And I think they were actually like 7-6 in those games that Sam Darnold started. They went 7-9. He didn't play that well, but he had the one game where they beat Dallas at home when he came back from Mono, and they kind of screwed Dallas over. And so that's a game everybody remembers. I think that's the game right after the Amari Cooper trade. No. They played Tennessee on Monday Night Football after the Amari Cooper trade. That's my mistake. But I think it might have been the game that forced them to trade for Amari Cooper, something like that. Then the year after that is, I think, 2020, right? The COVID year. They play them week 2. That Jets team was crappy. And then he gets moved to Carolina. Matt Rule, it was a terrible situation. They couldn't block his first year. Now, in all of these situations, he hasn't played well. But my point is the situations weren't good. And here's why I don't write off Sam Darnold, even though I'm probably negative on Sam Darnold. In my mind, if you put Brock Purdy in those Jets situations, you put Brock Purdy in those Carolina situations, I don't know if I look at Brock Purdy as he would be successful in those situations. Now we're speculating again, but if you put Trey Lance in those Jets situations, you put Trey Lance in those Panthers situations, I don't know if we're looking at those guys, him either, and saying that's a successful quarterback. And so it's not that I think very highly of Sam Darnold, but his competitors in this case, I don't think if you put him in his situation, like if I put Mahomes on that Jets team, we could start talking about perhaps maybe Mahomes turns it around, right? Mahomes finds a way out of that crappy situation. He changes all of that. I don't think any of us look at Brock Purdy or Trey Lance that way right now. And we certainly for sure don't look at Sam Darnold that way. We do look at those two guys, as Krug said, well, maybe not me, but Krug looks at those two guys as guys that they can win a Super Bowl with on this team in this system. Because as Krug said, they have the number one defense. They have this excellent play caller. Their requirement of what they need from their quarterback to win a Super Bowl is less than some of these other teams, right? Well, I think you can create a plausible argument for saying Sam Darnold could be that kind of guy as well. Okay, we know Sam Darnold's not a franchise quarterback. We know Sam Darnold's not the kind of guy that's going to uplift your franchise and turn things around. Absolutely, those two things are proven. We don't know those two things about Brock Purdy and Trey Lance yet. We know that Sam Darnold isn't that. But I still think that if we think Brock Purdy and Trey Lance aren't that, and we both think that they can be successful in this situation, I think Sam Darnold, you give him Christian McCaffrey. I mean, look at what we are hearing about Brandon Ayuk's camp. It's overshadowing the camp of Deebo Samuel, and it sounds like Krug said Deebo Samuel has come in great shape, and he looks like how he did in 2021 camp when he was the best player on the 49ers. So those two guys are at a different level. Kittle is phenomenal, right? Trent Williams is a superstar. This defense is fantastic. I'm not high on Sam Darnold, but you guys, I think, agree with the fact that I think you can have success with Sam Darnold for sure.
Well, I want to shed light on his original comment, though, because that is very important. His
comment?
No. Sam here. This gentleman, Sam, his original comment was, regardless of health, Sam Darnold's going to be the starter. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's not going to be the starter over Brock Purdy. It's just not going to happen. So that I completely disagree with. That is different from, hey, Sam's had a been on bad teams. You're saying he can't turn it around? I don't think it is very likely at all. I'd give it about a 5% chance. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't like the prospect of Sam Darnold. And here's what I will say. When I evaluate quarterbacks and I look at quarterbacks, I do think there's one thing that can carry across good teams, bad teams, and that's your decision making. I think he's a horrible decision maker. Just like I thought Jimmy Garoppolo was a horrible decision maker, just like I think Jameis Winston is a horrible decision maker.
Yo, why did
Jameis is getting involved too?
Jabu has to take that.
You are either a good decision maker, a sound decision maker, or a poor decision maker, and I do not believe he is a good decision maker. So there we go.
I think Sam Darnold is what, you know, is if you're making a movie about football, he looks like a quarterback.
For sure.
I mean, he has a lot of fans. Let's be honest here. Matt Mayoko said he's arguably the greatest thrower of the football of any quarterback in Niner history. Jeremy Fowler.
Wait, Krug, let me ask you this real quick before you move on. Do you think Matt Mayoko said that, or do you think somebody within the 49ers gave Matt Mayoko confidence to say that?
I believe that somebody planted that. I don't think Matt came up with that on his own. I think there was a conversation that he's sort of regurgitating. And then NFL.com, there was a contributor who mentioned Sam Darnold as a dark horse MVP candidate. So he obviously has fans. And Shanahan himself, had a lot of glowing things to say about Sam Darnold to Mike Silver. I just don't see it. I've tried to see it. I want to see it. Heck, I cover the 49ers. I'd like the 49ers to be good. I'd like to agree with Kyle Shanahan if I could, but I've looked at Sam Darnold. I've watched all the tape. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I agree with Jesse. I think he's I'll use the word questionable. I won't say bad, but I'll say he's a questionable decision maker. And the only thing about Sam Darnold that makes me even pause at all is when I did the deep dive on all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and I realized that, of the 30 guys in the Hall of Fame, 28 of them or 25 of them started slow. And at 25 hadn't really done squat. And so it's not done. It's like the story's not written on Sam Darnold, but if we're voting, I vote no. I mean, and it's not personal. He seems like a nice enough guy. I don't see any consistent positives in his play. I see a big guy, pretty athletic. He definitely he's got the chiseled jaw and he looks like the central casting quarterback. If you're making a quarterback movie, I think he'd be a great quarterback to play, great guy to play the quarterback in a movie, but I don't see the consistency in his play either at SC, where he was on some really good teams. So it's like you turned it over a ton at SC on great teams. Then you go to the Jets and you're on a bad team, and guess what? You turned it over there. Then you go to Carolina, he turns it over there.
The 17 team at SC was good. They had Juju Smith-Schuster, they had Ronald Jones, and all of that. The 18 team, look, I thought Sam Darnold was one of the more overrated quarterbacks to come out in the draft with how people hyped him up. But that 18 team with Clay Helton was a fucking mess. It was a fucking mess.
The guy's had about 100 turnovers in 5 years in the NFL, roughly 100. That's a lot of turnovers, man. That is a lot of turnovers. So how much are you going to blame the Jets? Now, I do know I went back and looked at the numbers. It was a high percentage of his picks have come in the fourth quarter, down in games. He's trying to make something happen. So the numbers inflated a little bit because of him being on the Jets. But then I went to the all 22, watched the sideline wide, the end zone wide, watched the condensed versions with the announcers. So I got the narrative of the game. And I saw him look better in Carolina, but not like better, like, oh my God, I got to have this guy on my team. So, if somehow he's here and surrounded by a lot of great offensive weapons and a great play caller, can the Niners get more out of him than the previous two teams? Yeah, probably. I just don't see special.
By the way, if we're voting, just before you go, Jesse, if we're voting, even though I sound like the Sam Darnold defender here, I am unequivocally voting no as well on Sam Darnold. I'm just
for sure.
I'm just presenting the case on why I think there is an opportunity here, even though, if we had to say yes or no, it's no for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if Sam Darnold's the starting quarterback of this team, I'm rooting for him, and I think they can win games with them. But Sam Darnold is not showing anything at all in this league to forego the development of Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. I'm not going to forego their development for the sake of Sam Darnold at 25 years old, 56 starts into this thing. It's just not worth it to me. So I'm not doing
Sam Darnold with so much disgust for the sake of
I don't get it. I don't get it. And Ronald, what was his name again? It was Sam, right? Sam. It was also Sam. Yeah. Sam, I'm not saying this is you because I don't know. This is the first time I've seen you in my chat, to be real with you. And I appreciate your donations. And I say this to everybody. It's very hard being on your side because you get a limited amount of characters and then I can talk as much as I want. I don't know what the full context is, but I will say there are a lot of people that think the way that you do that also will completely write off Trey Lance after 3.5 starts. And I think that is laughable. So and again, I'm not saying you're that guy. I have no idea what your opinion is, but a lot of people in your situation or with your thought process would then also turn around and say, well, Trey's a bust after 3.5 games. So that's really where I think we have an issue here. Okay. I'm not going to keep with the super chats because it's getting crazy, but I'm going to go back to Niner Matt's super chat and let's talk about the quarterbacks, all four getting multiple reps. Kyle Allen getting as many reps as Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. Trey Lance and some of these other guys, maybe all of them, are having to sit 20, 25 minutes before they take the field again. They're throwing on the sideline just to stay warm. At what point does it get ridiculous that we're trying to feed reps in for 4 quarterbacks when we're talking about really three guys that are clearly better. As much as I just hated on Sam Darnold, he is better than Allen. Okay. That I will confidently say, and I am fine with that statement. But when we have three guys that one is trying to learn the system in Sam Darnold, one needs every rep that he can get because he hasn't thrown in competitive football games outside of a few very much since 2019 and Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy coming off of a major injury, being named the starter going into just his second year in the NFL, could use every rep that he can get as well. Why are we giving reps to four quarterbacks and making quarterbacks sit for 20 to 25 minutes between their period to figure out what exactly? Is Kyle messing this up? And if not, what the hell is the game plan? Vish, this time I'll start with you. What is your opinion on this?
I think that they looked at Allen and how he played at OTAs, and I know Larry talked about it a little because did both of you predict that Darnold gets cut when we did the show last week, and that Allen makes
traded.
the team?
Traded.
Yeah, and I think they do look at this quarterback situation that way. I think they look at Allen as a guy that's capable of making their 53-man roster, and they're going to give him an opportunity to do it from what it sounds like. And I think in the case that he does fulfill and earn this opportunity, which means that by giving him these reps, he actually proves enough to make the roster on this team, then we'll go back to everybody's favorite conversation because we're going to be talking about trading one of Sam Darnold or Trey Lance at that point, both of which are kind of financially funky to trade because it's not like the Niners necessarily save that much money by trading them, but those are the only two guys we can really talk about with trade when we're talking about this quarterback situation. Because like we've mentioned, right, Purdy's worst case scenario is if this season is catastrophic because he's the 49ers backup. That's what would happen to him. These other two guys, I think, if things go bad or if Brandon Allen proves he's better than them this offseason, they're going to get traded. And so I think that's what it is. They're giving him a real chance. And I think what it's also proving is that, Kyle Shanahan is not necessarily married really to any of these guys based on what he has spent on them or anything like that. Like, that doesn't mean anything to Kyle. It's just who is executing his system the best. And he's just looking for the three best executors of his system. He's less worried about, hey, where did I draft you? How much did I invest in you? Because clearly he's seeing something in Brandon Allen that's warranting him getting reps. Now, Krug, you might need to tell us what he's seeing in Brandon Allen because I've seen Brandon Allen play enough in his career, and he is fine, but surely I wouldn't expect him to be a guy that's taking away reps from guys that have talent to be starters versus he's a guy who at his very best is your backup quarterback. And so, Krug, enlighten us. What is Brandon Allen doing?
This is what I see here. It's like if I tell you you got to have three guests on a radio show, are you going to call three people? Are you going to call four people? Are you going to call five people? You're going to call as many people as you think you need to call to have three guests on a radio show, right? Okay. It's kind of the same thing. The Niners decided at the end of last year that they had to have a quarterback room full of options. And the only way to make sure that you have enough options is to have more options than you need. And that's, I think, where they're at. I think there's two clear reasons why they have these four quarterbacks. The one is injury, and the reason they're getting reps for two reasons. Because they don't know if somebody's going to go down with an injury. They don't know if Purdy's elbow is going to hold up or if Trey's going to stay healthy or, what. They don't know which guy's going to be healthy or not healthy. And so they want to have four viable NFL options, and they view the four guys as viable options. So I think injury is one of the reasons they have four quarterbacks. I think the other reason they have four quarterbacks is they're trying to do two things at once. Build a football team that has three quarterbacks and also maintain to the outside world, the other teams in the NFL, that these guys are potentially up for a trade. So I think that's what it's about. It's like you're going to play, give four quarterbacks reps because you can't if you basically didn't give all 4 quarterbacks reps, you couldn't trade them. I think their scenario is that they get to pick from these 4 quarterbacks who are the 3 best, and they get to trade the 4th guy. If it's Brandon Allen, I think at best they're going to get is probably a 7th round pick. If it's Sam Darnold, there's rumor that Green Bay has interest. Green Bay's backup is Sean Clifford. Their 3rd guy is Danny Etling. As much as I think Sam Darnold's flawed, I think those guys are more flawed. So I think Green Bay, especially since they're kind of a consistently competitive organization, they're going with Jordan Love. They probably would like to have Sam Darnold, and it might be worth a 5th or 6th round pick. And I think the Niners are positioning themselves to potentially make a move with one of these quarterbacks that isn't Brock. Brock's not going to be traded. One of the other 3 guys, I believe, is. And that's it. I think they want to give themselves ultimate flexibility. They want to cover themselves against injury. And if you don't give one of the guys reps, then everybody knows you're going to cut them, and then there's no reason to trade for them. So I think that's ultimately why they're getting reps. They may have to use them, and so they want to make sure they have reps, and they would like to trade them, trade one. And the only way to maintain that is by giving them reps. But how long do you carry it out? You carry it out for a week, you carry it out for 10 days, you carry it out the entire preseason. I don't know. That I don't know. But if you said, what's the game plan? I think that's the game plan.
Krug, before you finish real quick, did you feel like there was not enough reps to go around today? Or did you feel like, hey, I got a sufficient look at each quarterback today?
There was a long break. First of all, they skipped Sam in the rotation. It went, they skipped Sam in the rotation one of the times. And I don't know why. The other thing that Shanahan has maintained is that the reps will even out, but they won't even out every day. They're going to even out every 3 days. They're going 3 on, 1 off. And so over a 72-hour period, they feel like they've got a plan to share the reps equitably. But I kind of agree with the people pushing back on this. If you really are sincere about developing a player like Trey Lance, who has 1 year of college football since high school, I think you got to get him as many reps as possible. If you're really trying to bring Brock Purdy back from off-season of inactivity, I think he needs as many reps as possible. So when you have your 2 top guys, in my opinion, need lots of reps, I don't know that I love the plan. But I think that at the end of the day, I think that I verbalize what I think their plan is. They want to have 3, and the only way to guarantee they're going to have 3 is by having 4 and then being covered if one gets hurt. And the only way you're going to get anything in return for any of these guys at the cut down is if other teams believe that anyone, because they're not just giving them reps. Kyle Shanahan's talking everybody up. I mean, that's the other part of this. He's talked up Brandon Allen. He's talked up Trey Lance. He's talked up Sam Darnold. So now, if you're looking at this from afar, and there might be some team that likes Brandon Allen, that wants him. He was number 2 in Cincinnati. The 49ers do. Brock Purdy was a 7th round pick. So the Niners have done incredibly well on day 3. So maybe they value day 3 picks. Maybe they feel like they can steal one for Brandon Allen. Maybe they feel like they could steal one for Sam Darnold. Maybe they feel like this whole charade is worth, I call it a charade, but this whole, let's talk up 4 quarterbacks and share reps between 4 quarterbacks. Maybe they feel like this is the best solution to make sure they're covered and maybe be able to get some compensation that they view as valuable. I don't know. I personally would rather see your top guys get more reps.
Is there a worry that then, I guess you addressed it pretty much, but the next question, right, is that, and I guess it's to you, Jesse, is there a worry that these guys aren't getting enough reps, right? We've talked about the abbreviated practice schedule ad nauseum with the new CBA, right? Offenses just don't get enough reps. That's why September for a lot of these offenses, Niners start slow specifically, so many details with their offense. By the way, the run game doing very well the first 2 days of camp is a very positive sign, because that's not something that usually gets going early because there's so much synchronization involved in that. So that's a very positive side. But generally, yeah, is there a question of, are there enough reps to go around for these guys? Are there enough reps happening? Did you feel like, I don't know, what do you think about that, Jesse? Like, do you think that there's going to be an issue with, hey, if they give them more reps, they're trying to build up all four of these guys, it's going to turn into a situation where we spent so much time trying to create an even-handed situation with the quarterbacks in competition that nobody really got enough reps? And the reason I say this is I cite the example that Bill Belichick falls back on, right? When they had the Brady-Bledsoe quarterback controversy and Bledsoe came back from injury, Belichick split reps that week of practice and ultimately went to Brady. They lost that game, but Belichick comes back and says that he thinks that week he was unfair to Brady, and that the reason they lost that game was not because of Brady, but it was because he didn't say that Brady was the starter and give him all the reps. He gave half of those to Drew Bledsoe, so they couldn't be prepared enough as a team. So the next week, he unequivocally names Brady the starter. 6 Super Bowls later, that's their history, right? Is there a situation where they're so invested in building up these quarterbacks and building up their value that they're missing maybe getting these guys valuable reps and getting them ready for the season? And then my second question is, Krueger was over there talking about them coveting a day 3 pick. They didn't want a day 3 pick for Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. They wanted a mid-round pick for that. How the hell do we know that they'll be even willing to part with one of these guys for a late-round pick?
That's exactly where I was going, Vish. You definitely teed me up on that one, because the 49ers have insane values of their quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan has never met a quarterback that has been on his roster that he does not absolutely love, absolutely covet. He overplays or overvalues all of his guys for whatever reason. And so I don't know if their evaluation is realistic of what they can get back, and B, if you are doing a disservice to all of them, which I believe they are by doing this. I think this is absolutely the wrong way to handle it. Now, on day 3s, it won't be so bad because Brock won't be throwing. You'll have the other 3 guys going. It'll kind of even itself out. That's great. But 66% of your practices, you are shortchanging really everybody. And I think that is a major mistake. If the plan, Vish, is to trade either Sam or Trey, presumably, because they believe Allen is a good third string quarterback or what have you, why wouldn't you speed up that process and give Trey and Sam every single rep you can over the next 7 days and make that decision definitively, and then make the move to try to trade them while you start to incorporate Allen however you want to do that? By doing it this way, you are prolonging the process of actually knowing which one is a better option. If that is the route they are trying to take, I think it's a mistake.
Krug?
Why don't they end this sooner and trade one of these guys sooner? Is that what you're
well,
asking?
I'm saying if the struggle is really, hey, we're going to keep one between Sam and Trey. We're for sure keeping Allen. We think as a third string, price wise, what he brings to the table is perfect. We're going to keep Allen. We're going to keep Purdy. If the decision is truly between Trey and Sam Darnold, is Vish alluded to, if that is the concern, then why not give every rep you can to Trey and Sam Darnold and figure out which one you actually want to keep? Because 5 reps a day and 11 on 11s is not going to get you figured anything out in a fast manner. Go ahead, Vish.
Can I offer you the other side to this?
Yeah.
Because I think what they might be doing what you're saying, but the opposite. What if the decision is less about Trey versus Sam, but is Brandon Allen capable of making our 53-man roster? And what if they're giving him these reps right now, and it's in this first week, either you prove that you're capable of competing in this competition, or your reps are gone and you're looking at as our practice squad guy, 4th guy, you're going to play cleanup duty in preseason. What if it's that?
If it's that, I'm not as against it, but still, I just, my whole thing going into this offseason was a bit of frustration with having Sam Darnold here. I completely always understood why you would start Brock Purdy, why that made sense. But the moment that you started giving, hey, we're going to split reps between Sam and Trey, I'm like, that's why? Why would you Trey needs every rep he can get. And now Trey's not only competing with Sam Darnold, but he's competing with Brandon Allen. Like, this is where we've gotten. This is the guy that you said was your starter last year and you like more than ever. And he's competing with Brandon Allen. Come on, man. It's too much at this point. You're doing way too much. It's way too cute.
I wish I could have been there to hear the Niners pitch to Darnold and Allen. If there was one moment of this offseason I wish I was there for, I wish I could have heard John Lynch verbalize their pitch to get these guys to come here. But I think, we're going to get some answers during the Raider. A lot of people have speculated that the Raider joint practices, which is very early for joint practices going into the first preseason game, that could have a pivotal impact on how this quarterback hierarchy gets determined, or how they thin the herd a little bit based on how the quarterbacks play there. So I'm interested to see, one, what are the reps? What's the rep split look like when they put the pads on Sunday, Monday, whenever it is? And then does it look any different in Vegas? Because
if it goes to Vegas, Larry, and they've gone 10 practices into this, they've effed it off big time, in my opinion. Every practice that they belabor this point is getting worse and worse and worse, in my opinion. The way I look at it is, outside of maybe Brock, who, they have the plan to start 2 out of 3 practices, I think they've done a major disservice to 3 other guys for 10 practices, is the way that I see it. If that's
Here's the one thing, though, we're being very critical of the Niners on one front. We're assuming that they knew what Brock's situation was going to be. What if the one angle on this we're not really discussing is, what if they didn't because they signed these players at a time when they didn't know
for sure
what Brock was going to be. So back to my point of, if you want coverage, like if you're walking out of the link going, we are not going through that again. Hell, if we're going to get lost with a situation where we don't have enough quarterbacks, we are going to have more quarterbacks than we need if that's what it comes down to. And then you don't know about Brock's situation. And when you went and added these quarterbacks, would they do it if they knew that Brock was going to be back before camp even started and he was going to miss no time and it was going to be a full go at the beginning of camp? I wonder if they would have all 4 quarterbacks. And my guess is no. And I think they were covering themselves against the unknown of his return and when he would return in and what condition he would return in. And I don't think they'll go too long with 4, but now I think the reps is a lot about, let's make the league believe we like everybody, and if somebody wants to come to us, we'll get something in return. Otherwise you're just taking valuable reps away from a guy like Trey Lance, who needs these reps, who needs these repetitions with the number 1s. Or number 2s. He just needs field time. And I don't think it's a good situation if he ever sits like Sam Darnold sat today for 25 minutes without playing in the middle of a practice.
I loved your analogy of, hey, if I need to book 3 people, I'm calling 5, 6, 7 until I got my 3. I love that.
Right.
But then also, if all 7 say yes, you're not bringing 7 people on the show. You're choosing your 3. Just like this right here. I know that as we run this show, I was hesitant to do 3 every week. So I'm like, I don't know, man. That's a lot of people talking. I think 3's fine. I think we figured it out. But if we all of a sudden add a 4th person to this thing, I'm out. Like, you guys can rotate with 3 of your channels and I'm out of it because 4 is way too much. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. With the quarterback thing, I think 3 is good. And inviting all the people is great, but once you've got them there and you know for a fact, hey, I've got the people I need, I'm not then allowing all 7 people to end up on the show. So that's where I'm at with it. So if this only happens through the weekend and by Monday they make a decision, okay, it's not that big of a deal. What I'm saying is, if they wait all the way through the Raiders practices or Raiders week, ooh, I do not like that at all. I mean, you've literally taken a third of the offseason and said, See you later. Doesn't mean anything for 3 of these guys. I think that's a bad decision.
Jesse, we got to get some super chats going, my friend.
I know they're building up. Okay, I'm going to crank through them real quick. All right, Mike Monahan says Hard Knocks, 49er chat spaces. Yeah, that's what it feels like. Don C, what does Brock do to put fear in NFL defenses? Trey Lance will be QB1. Monday with pads will be the beginning of his end. He's a backup at best. That's a bold take for a guy that seems to be a clear leader in the clubhouse. I will say the same thing that I've always said about when people bring up the fear thing. You don't have to be scared to get your ass whooped. So you may not fear him, but he's winning games.
Well, that and the 49ers aren't necessarily. Here's the other distinction here, right? Like, as much as we thought there was a change in mindset, there isn't a change in mindset. The Niners aren't looking for a guy that's going to scare defenses, right? Justin Fields scares defenses. I don't think that that's a guy the 49ers are looking at as their quarterback. They're looking at a guy because they think their system scares defenses. So they just want the best executor of their system. I don't even think they care who that name is. Or I don't think specifically Kyle Shanahan cares who that name is. He just wants the best executor of his system, and that can change year to year. So, like, I don't think he cares if every defense thinks Brock is the worst quarterback in the world. If Brock says what he does, or if Brock does what Kyle tells him to do better than Trey and Sam, Brock will be Kyle's guy.
This sounds like Trey Lance's uncle. All I gotta say, I mean, this guy's just a Trey Lance idiot. Who was the number one quarter? Who was the number one scoring offense in the NFL this year? Does anybody know?
This year they haven't played a game. I'm not sure.
Last year,
49ers.
No, it wasn't. It was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay,
and they scored.
I thought you were saying when Brock took over.
My point is the Kansas City Chiefs scored 29 points a game. Number one offense in the NFL. What did the Niners do with Brock Purdy? They scored 33 points a game, 4 more points a game than the number one offense in the NFL. So what does Brock do to put fear into NFL defenses? I don't know if it's Brock, if it's Shanahan, if it's the Niners with Brock, the Niners with Brock and Shanahan. I don't know if you don't want to give Brock any credit because whatever. I don't know what your issue is with Brock. They scored 33 points a game. Mic drop.
Whoa. Oh, he drops the pen too. Why do you got a pink pen over there?
Is that a pink pen?
That's right. Mic drop. No, I mean, seriously, 33 points a game. That's what they scored under Brock Purdy. That's 4 points a game more than the number one offense in football. That's what I mean.
Say something.
Come on. What are we talking about?
That's the first time I've seen you share that stat.
What's that? No,
I said that's the first time I've seen you share that stat. I swear, every show we do, Krug, at some point you hit 33 points a game and 4 points more than Mahomes.
I mean, what does Brock do to put fear in NFL defenses? He scores points. The Niners offense under Brock Purdy scores points, and how quickly everybody forgets. You know what the Niners record was? And this is another one that I drop a lot. How come nobody's ever talking about 9-29? All the quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo under Kyle Shanahan, 9-29. So it's not like it's just Shanahan. It's not. Give Brock his. Come on, seriously. If all the quarterbacks that were with Shanahan except for Jimmy were 9-29, that means it ain't just you just throw any quarterback out there and Shanahan and they score points. It sounds good, but it's not true. The fact that Brock scored all these points, I mean, give him his. Why are we so hesitant to give this guy his love? Is it because he's short? Is it because he doesn't have the hugest arm? What is it about Brock Purdy that makes people want to disrespect the fact that they scored the most points in the league?
Why'd you go to short first of all things?
yeah.
So odd. Like,
I'm trying to wonder what's the deal.
Average.
Why do people disrespect Brock?
Above average.
Is it just because of the draft status? Really? Or is it the height?
I mean,
how about Iowa State being 1-8 in the Big 12 this year after Brock Purdy left? Maybe Brock Purdy's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing: is I I don't know if I'm going to go like crazy one way or another. I do understand because I'm that guy that pushes back. I don't think it's disrespect to Brock at all. Again, I've talked up Brock all the way from 2020 through 2021 before the draft, celebrated when he was drafted, said that he was a third round talent when he was drafted. So if it was all about being right and trying to get clout, why would I would just ride the wave all the way through? Right? So for me it's about, hey, this is just my opinion. If now the question is I'm putting him up against running my franchise for long term, I'm going to judge him like that. And I do think that there's a lot of things that played into that. I'm not saying he deserves no credit because hell yeah, he deserves credit. If I have my choice between Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, and Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that I've said is a starter in this league, 17 to 22, anywhere in that range. If I could choose who to have as my quarterback this upcoming year and into the future, I'm taking Brock Purdy and I'm doing it without hesitation, even if the money was dead even.
Where do you think Brock ranks?
Right now, it's too early. I don't know, bro. Krug, here's the facts of it. He could fall on his face this year. I'm not predicting that, but that could happen. 8 games is just way too early for me to crown anybody. I love a lot of the things that I saw. I loved what I saw out of Brock Purdy coming out of college. And one thing that I said throughout last season, people were like, "Oh, he's gonna crumble at some point." I'm like, I don't know if you know who Brock Purdy is from a mental standpoint. The thing that I always liked about Brock Purdy is regardless of any of the physical whatever, I believe mentally he's extremely strong and extremely confident. And I think everybody saw that on full display throughout last year when he played. So regardless of the skill set, he's always going to compete because that is who he is. That's what's in him as a competitor. And I love that about Brock Purdy. I also will take a step back and look at it and say, the 33 points was great, but they were scoring 26 with Jimmy. And if they had averaged, I don't know, a full extra turnover per game with Jimmy, the way they did with Brock, I do think it's possible they could have gotten up over 30 with Jimmy as well. I think that is a possibility.
Purdy had the number 1 passer rating in the NFL off play action, in rhythm, off shifts.
I'm going to be honest with you.
The numbers.
Passer rating means zip, zero zilch to me because if you can't calculate it real quick and tell me everything that goes into it, I don't give a shit about the stat. Passer rating means nothing to me.
I hear you, but it's all relative, right? He's still ranked. Sure. It's not about the rating. It's or a particular number. It's where it ranked. It's first in the NFL. First in the NFL.
So is he the best quarterback in the NFL?
No, but I'm just saying we have actual data that says he ranked first outside the numbers. And yet there are people that would say, hey, you know what? He ain't that great outside the numbers, but they're not going to throw any. What are they using? I'm just saying, I'm not sure why the disrespect. I'm not sure what the guy needs to do, but it is kind of blatant at this point. It's like, there's a lot of people that believe it's not sustainable. I thought the best interview that I've seen all off season was the one that Mayoko did with Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith's pretty smart. I think you guys probably do as well. Alex Smith says, I love Trey Lance's future. I think he's incredibly talented. I think he's a great kid that really works hard. He was so young. He was 20 years old when he got drafted. His college experience was unique. He's battled injuries. And he basically just goes on to say he just needs to block out the noise, focus on getting better, and he still really believes in his future.
Can we just keep Trey Lance out of it and just keep it independent?
No, but I'm just saying.
Talk about this discussion.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's what Alex said about Trey, and I agree with him what he says about Trey, and I agree with what he said about Brock, which is he's saying, hey, you know what? There's all these other things like height, 40 time, all arm strength, all these different things. What it really comes down to playing quarterback in the NFL is an ex-NFL quarterback: accuracy, processing, timing. He said Brock's got it, and he thinks it's sustainable. So, I mean, that's Alex Smith. And I mean, Alex Smith is very positive about both guys. He's very positive overall. But I'm just saying.
I will say it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous when you cite like that quote and you say, well, that's why it's going to be sustainable, right? Because Ron Jaworski, the Polish, what was he? The Polish rifle?
Polish rifle.
The Ron Jaworski, the great ESPN's Ron Jaworski, after 2012 said Colin Kaepernick was going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. That's how he projected him. And so it's not great. It's not agreed. And it's not Kaepernick was great. And Jaworski is an informed person. And he's not any less informed because he was wrong about what Kaepernick's ultimate career outlook was. My point is, Alex Smith's also right about Brock having it and Brock being able to play with timing and processing and all of that. But none of us actually know about it being sustainable just because there's so much more that goes into sustenance, right? He has to stay healthy. It's the team around him has to be pretty good. There's a few other things that have nothing to do with Brock Purdy that also have to deal with Brock Purdy's sustenance. And I think that's where it's a little bit dangerous to go either direction in this. I think it's dangerous to say he's a backup at best and all of that because generally we don't know anything other than, hey, the guy has had 8 very good games and now he's coming off of a very serious injury that he seems to be healthy with. But
let me ask you this, Larry.
He's a backup at best.
Do you think?
Come on, Dom.
No,
I just disagreed with that.
Okay.
I just disagreed with that.
Yeah. Let's for sure. Listen, the hate goes too far in one. I get that. I guess the point is, I also think the love can go too far as well. To a lot of people have said crazy-ish like, "Oh, he's our Joe Montana. It's like, come on, man. Like, there's crazy in both ways. But I think it's also entirely possible that if his 8 starts were for the Texans, nobody would care who Brock Purdy is. Like, I think that's also a possibility because I don't know that he can carry a roster with everything he has. I do believe that what he did last year, I don't know, but I'm not going to say 33 points a game because that is insane. But winning, if we're just talking about straight winning, yeah, 100% that's sustainable with this roster is constructed. I don't know how long that's sustainable if we start pulling away pieces. And that's why I make the Texans comment of, hey, if these 8 starts were with the Texans, I don't think 33 points or anything close to that would have happened. And I certainly know that 8-0 wouldn't have happened.
Here, Larry, before you go, real quick, as a rebuttal to that, because I'm going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. But the one thing I will say that gets lost because the 49ers quarterback situation is always talked about big picture and all of that is then there turns into this inherent conversation about like, well, he was a rookie player. When have we ever expected a rookie quarterback to be able to carry the load,
sure,
right? Like as a rookie quarterback, he did his job, and that's where I know
more than
what
that.
you were intending. I know what you were intending, but I wanted to make sure that that's also out there as well with this, right? Like he's a rookie quarterback. This idea that, oh, he should have carried this, can he carry that? We should never be able to answer that question about a rookie quarterback. And in fact, even with Trey Lance, who a lot of people think has the talent to carry the roster, if he had played the entire season, if he had stayed healthy, if he had remained the starter, he would have been a supporting cast player as well. He wouldn't have been the main character in the 49ers offense's story as well. There was never an expectation for a younger rookie player to do that too. So I wanted to mention that as well.
Brock completely outplayed his contract. Completely outplayed his contract.
An NFL agent this morning who called me and he said, you know what? The NFL hasn't figured out a way to measure quarterbacks who have intangibles. The 2 best quarterbacks in this guy's mind, the 2 best quarterbacks who have ever played, Joe Montana, Tom Brady. Brady went in the 6th. Montana went in the 3rd. He said if those guys were in the next draft, guess what round they'd go in? Brady would go in the 6th and Montana would go in the 3rd. And so that's just it. We look at 40 times, we bench press, all these different things. We screw it up. We screw up the evaluation of the quarterbacks. Look how many teams screw up first round picks on the quarterback. We're looking for the wrong things. We don't know how to measure intangibles. We don't know how to measure key factors, obviously. Otherwise, Brady wouldn't go in the 6th and Montana wouldn't go in the 3rd. And that's kind of where we're at. I'm not saying Purdy's them. I'm just saying guys who have intangibles, it doesn't register on the NFL. And we haven't learned anything in decades of evaluating these guys.
Can I ask you a question?
Are always made. Yeah, absolutely.
Specific to this, because I do think you have, like, overall, I think your point's absolutely right. like the innate confidence, the self-belief. That's really what we refer to as it, right? A guy who just doesn't waver. And Purdy, I think it's not been talked about enough. For a 7th-round rookie to come into the situation he came in, starting with the Miami game where he saw cover 0 like 9 different snaps, not to get rattled, keep his poise, make mistakes, keep his poise while making mistakes. Like the Dallas first half, he got rattled in the first half against Dallas. To settle himself, to play really well down the stretch, make that off-schedule play against Kittle, like all of those things absolutely exist. But I do think also when we're talking about quarterback intangibles, sometimes I think they get overblown, where we get into a situation where we fall in love with the person and the kid and we stop talking about them as a quarterback. I think Sam Darnold is overdrafted because of this. And the question I wanted to ask you is, I know you were covering the team at KMBR and doing your thing, being the late great, or being not the late great, excuse me, pardon me for doing that to you, but I called you the great Larry Krueger in 2015. What did everybody around the 49ers say about how smart Blaine Gabbert was and what his intangibles were like?
Yeah, people love Gabbert. People love Gabbert. I mean, Bruce Arians loved Gabbert even since then, right? Didn't he talk him up?
Yeah.
You know, there's guys who are great prospects on paper, you know, and you got to make it, you know, and it comes down to what? And toughness, accuracy. I don't know exactly. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying that the greatest quarterbacks of our time, if they were still in the draft right now, we don't value what Brady had or what Montana had, or there's no way to really measure it. So we're still going for the same kinds of quarterbacks over and over and over again. The biggest, strongest, and guys who have the best 40 time, and guys
I saw Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert come out in the same draft. And what you're describing right now would mean that Justin Herbert was the first pick of the 3. And Joe Burrow went first.
I love the kid from Carolina. I'm a believer.
No.
Bryce
Young.
Oh, Bryce Young. Yeah,
I love Bryce.
Me too.
I love Bryce. I really believe in Bryce. He's tiny. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's small.
We'll see. We'll see if maybe the NFL gets it going and they start to figure it out. But, man, look at the guys drafted in the first round in the last 20 years.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's a crazy litany of mistakes. I'm
Crap
watching this. I love quarterbacks on Netflix. Mariota. James Winston.
How much do we talk about Mariota this offseason, though? Were you like
so much
watching it thinking, man, I wish he was my backup?
Well, I you know what? I'll say this. I mean, and you know, sometimes you fall in love with guys if they play well against your team. I thought the way that Mariota played against the Niners when, you know, in Atlanta this last year was kind of the template for the value of Trey Lance if you want to use him as a runner. You know, don't use him as a runner running in between the tackles, but, you know, use him as short yardage as a continuity piece to keep your offense on the field. And, you know, if you look at what he did at North Dakota State, they passed it 16 times a game. They ran it 45 times a game.
Right.
And I think that, like, if I don't love Mariota, but if you're going to have Mariota, to me, I thought he was uniquely dangerous in that game. He completed 84% against the Niners. Every time they got to 3rd and short, he's doing the zone read. He's holding the mesh point. You don't know who has the ball. I thought it put a lot of stress on the 49er defense, and talking to some of their players, they felt the same way, that they couldn't identify where the ball was. Did Huntley have it? Did Mariota have it? And just that pause a little bit made it really difficult to stop their run game. Sure enough, Smith and company dominated the time of possession, and they pulled the upset. So to me, when I think of Lance, I think of, man, could the Niners get Lance into a situation where I think he could be better than what Mariota was that day against the Niners? But unfortunately, Mariota couldn't sustain it. And I think Trey, in an ideal world, maybe he could sustain it. And I think it still has to be a run-heavy scheme where you're using the quarterback's legs and as a continuity piece to keep your offense on the field and dominate time of possession. I think that's the template for Trey to have success in the NFL. We'll see if anybody gets there.
I think one thing is that if we want to see the potential of either of those quarterbacks, Trey or Brock, they both have to figure out how to stay healthy, like one way or another. You know
And
what I
Sam
mean? And that's
Darnold.
going to be tough. And Sam Darnold as well. Yep, I agree. Okay. The coach says, "Gotta love Larry's two franchise quarterbacks."
Coach.
I hear Switzerland is nice this time of year too. You can't make them all happy. You got to put your flag in the ground, baby. I think his flag is planted in the Brock Purdy. Is the guy. I mean, that's
I like them both.
Not that he hates Trey, but if you're choosing Brock, right?
I kind of disagree with the coach. I don't think I don't think Trey Lance is a franchise quarterback today, but I think Trey is going to get there. And I think the 49ers, if there wasn't this cap situation where they had to pay him at a ridiculous rate and they could just rip up the contract and give him a 5-year deal and say, you know what, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be a Niner. You're going to stay here. And we're going to figure this out over time. I would love to see that. I just don't know that that's possible. And I'll say this, what's the frustrating part about their situation right now is I love Trey's future. I love Brock's present. And I can't picture the 49ers giving both those guys a second contract. And that's where this gets kind of complicated.
But you do
all right, coach.
You do picture one of them getting a second contract?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to try my best here, coach. Larry, right now you had to choose Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. The other one has to go. No option. Not just for this year, but forever. You're foregoing the rest of their career as a San Francisco 49er, and you're going to watch them walk to another team and play out their career, whatever that ends up being.
Larry looks so sad when you say
Are you choosing Brock Purdy or Trey Lance? Let's go.
Damn you, Jesse. Like anything else, man, you got to take the bird in hand. I really believe the Niners have two franchise quarterbacks, but I don't believe Trey is ready to be a franchise quarterback this minute. I don't. I think there's more development that's needed. I think guys, we're in a point right now where we're taking, he's working with Christensen on these things that probably should have been hammered out in college. And the reason is because they drafted a super raw quarterback who played at the FCS level for the equivalent of Alabama. And so he wasn't forced. He ran for 1,100 yards. He just ran dudes over. Now he's got to develop his game, and it's a process, and it's going to take a year or two. I would say, if you're asking me who do I think's got the higher upside, I would say Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance has got the higher upside. I talked about it with an agent this morning. Trey's, he's got all, to me, he checks every box. He's smart. He's athletic. He's dedicated. He wants it. And he's a bigger, stronger, more dominant athlete. In a lot of ways, I see, and a lot of people, I brought this up to Coach on the live stream about a month ago. I see a lot of Joe Montana, Steve Young in this debate. Joe had a lot of intangibles.
Right now,
I think today, I think.
Would you? No, because if you think
long term, I think Trey's the better prospect.
Long term, Trey, if you were running your franchise, would you make the decision to commit to the long term plan of developing Trey and finding that out? Or would you make the decision to commit to Brock, which you have? Like, what would you do if you had to make?
I need more information because
pick one quarterback or pick the other.
I need more information because if I still own Brock, right? I own Brock's rights, so I need to know. Like, if I'm going with Trey, I still own Brock. So what's Brock worth? I need to know that. That's the other part of the information that I couldn't make that decision without knowing what somebody was willing to give me. If the 49ers decided they were all in on Trey and they were going to put Brock on the trade market, what would they get in return?
Right now, I think they'd get probably I think they actually would get similar value for both Trey and Brock. I think both of them would net probably a third rounder that could potentially escalate to a second rounder.
See, I think if you think they're franchise quarterbacks, they're worth way more than that.
For sure.
And I think they are. So I would not.
So Larry is
I would not
exactly
be
like
happy with
Shanahan.
that.
His value of the quarterbacks is.
I would not like if the Niners traded Trey Lance and got a mid-round pick, I'd be disgusted.
I think that's what he's worth right now. Nee says, this had me laughing. On a side note, I laughed that Jesse's thumbnail looked like a eulogy for Vish and Larry after they were murdered by Fred Warner in loving memory. Oh, that's so good. That's pretty good. Niner Cali Boy says, Jesse, please get Grant on. The show would do numbers. No, 4 is too much. I love Grant, but absolutely not. I just said there's no way I'm doing 4 people. Don
it's doing okay numbers right now anyway, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think
I think there's 5 bills in there, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't think my chat's ever gone over 5 bills. I've been over 4 bills a few times on like big guest shows. I don't think I've ever gone over 5, so I think we're doing okay. Don C says, Larry, you and Grant having YouTube beef is the most white people problems thing ever. Brother Bob says consistency. Brock Purdy throws a pick 6 and a dropped INT equals great play because he can throw those and overthrow. Trey Lance throws a drop pick and a bad play, poor decision maker. Like I said, to me, it just comes down to the person. And as long as the person's remaining consistent both ways, I'm fine with it. Official B&A Music says the deep pass has to be catchable. Empty heat checks during valuable reps is not something to run a victory lap over, not even for Trey. I think Larry, I mean, these were like an hour ago at this point, so that's one thing. We're way past that conversation.
Are we talking about Brock going deep today?
Yes. But literally this comment was an hour and 5 minutes ago. So
first of all that mattered today, I mean, I said this, I tried to say this as succinctly as possible. Who cares about completion percentage on July 27th? When a guy has elbow surgery, I got to find out, can he make all the throws? Can he throw it in tight windows? If Brock Purdy was thrown, I thought when the Niners drafted Brock Purdy, I was pissed because to me, he didn't have enough arm based on what I saw at Iowa State. But then when he showed up in camp, he had gone to Jacksonville, worked with these guys, picked up 5 miles an hour. Suddenly he was slightly above average. That's a huge part of being able to have success in the NFL. It's like throwing it's like having a baseball pitcher who throws 85 miles an hour. It doesn't work. You got to be able to throw at a requisite speed to get guys out in the big leagues. You got to be able to throw with a requisite amount of speed to fit it into the tight windows against NFL speedy defenders. So to me, that's really the big question about Brock Purdy and the people that are saying, it's not sustainable. I think that in some ways they're kind of saying he's a dink and dunk guy, doesn't have enough arm. And so I agree with that assessment that if there's a question, that would be it. I just differ from them because I believe he does have enough arm. And I think today was an example that he didn't lose arm strength. He didn't lose arm strength, at least based on what I saw today. We'll see tomorrow.
Shawnee Boy says Larry can chill. Everyone has different takes.
This is the Larry versus the world show. My God.
Wow, golly, man. Brian, I don't even want to say the last name.
Salcedo.
Grant, this Salcedo. This is actually a really good point right here. I love this, and I completely agree with it. Grant Cohn and Larry Krueger have different evals. Grant was clearly evaluating just off of today's practice, to where Larry was evaluating off of health and arm. So you're talking about two completely different launching points. That's why you're coming to completely different conclusions. And I think that's a very, very good point.
I think that's well said. I think he's totally right. He is right too, because Grant likes Brock too. I've talked to Grant. He likes Brock. He may not like him as much as other guys, but he likes him. But his comment today, and I haven't talked to him about it, but my quick assessment was he's evaluating the practice, and I'm evaluating the health of the quarterback.
Yep, absolutely. Especially for $2 to get that in. That's very concise. I like it.
I will say this. about my guy Krug over here on the previous topic. Couldn't get it in there. But I see that you're watching a little bit more than just the quarterback on Netflix. Someone's been watching Suits. The way you lawyered yourself out of having to actually pick which quarterback you wanted to rest your flag in was some good stuff, Krug.
If it does not fit, you must acquit.
I love it. 808 Niner says, what are we really talking about? What we're really talking about is practice against the best defense in the league for a guy coming off of an injury. As long as nobody got hurt, it was a good day. It's
Amen.
not like Jimmy was a practice god. Amen to that. I will definitely say, I was thinking about this earlier before the show. I was like, man, no injuries have come out of camp so far. This is really, really good. I hope that continues. So I am in agreement with that. Brother Bob says, Nails, get the football on the field today. Nails, get the football on field today. Who said Purdy looked like the GOAT? Crapped on your show with Kevin's dad? I don't even know. So Crew can tell him he's wrong. Hey, Ryan, picking a pickle. I don't even know. You talk in emojis. It's so hard to talk in emojis.
I didn't get that one at all.
Yeah, I didn't either. I don't.
Dog shit. That's what.
Okay.
That one is.
Oh, dog. I see. I thought it was a goat. It's so hard to see. It's so small. Okay. All right. Purdy looked like dog shit on your show with Kevin's dad. So, okay, I got you. All right. I got it.
Kevin's dad is the most unnecessary slight I've ever seen.
Yeah, but he's proud to be Kevin's dad, so I don't mean, it's not even like a slight, you know?
Yeah.
My kid has made me so much cash this year by making videos. I can't, I call him the ball. I call him. I joke with him. I'll see him in the hallway. I'll be like, "Hey, boss man." I call him boss man. What do we got going tonight, boss man? What do you need from me, boss man?
He's calling the shots.
Yeah, he's calling the shots.
Fair the Great says, I'm from New Jersey, and it's Jets on CBS and Giants on Fox. Brother, I feel your pain from back in the day when it was 49ers on Fox, Seahawks on CBS, and then when the Seahawks came over, brutal because I lost all the 49er games. Vish, you are correct, but he always made the boneheaded mistakes. Probably talking about Sam, maybe?
Yeah,
coaching decisions, making takes a complete buy-in and a year or two at QB1. Sam is worse than Jimmy.
Jesse, we've talked about this, right?
Yep.
In terms of flipping Darnold's decision making, if there's actually a process where he goes about not being turnover prone, we saw Daniel Jones just do it recently, and we saw Alex Smith do it in 2011.
Yes.
It includes a season where the quarterback is ridiculously conservative and leaving plays on the field and getting comfortable not turning it over. And then the next year, maybe that perhaps they get a little bit more comfortable being able to be aggressive without turning the football over.
Yeah, so, it's a great point.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking a back step before you take a big step backwards before you take that step forward, for sure. I agree with that. It's a great comment. Official B&A music, Darnold as Rex Grossman in the Peyton Manning film.
Jesus, that's tough.
That's rough.
Tough. Yeah.
AZ Gaming says, do you see Brock having a Nick Foles career? I mean, that's probably more of a question for me because I've brought up Nick Foles as like a launching point, like, hey, 27 touchdowns,
right,
2 interceptions, picks. And then having one of the best playoff runs you could possibly have to win a Super Bowl. And I'm not trying to say that Brock Purdy is Nick Foles when I say that. My point is that 8 games is just way too early to evaluate anybody, good or bad. If you played horrible for 8 games, it's still too early. It doesn't matter which way this goes. And the best proof of that for me and my personal take on this and how convicted I am on it, because I think it's apropos. How convicted I am on it is Zach Wilson is a guy that I absolutely hated coming into the draft process. Could not stand him. Didn't think he would be good. And he hasn't. He's actually shown everything that I thought he would be. But even him, I'm willing to give a third full year to before I'm going to say he's absolutely a bust. Move on. That's just where I'm at. 3-year rule is what I have, and that's what I'm sticking to. G Code says, will the 49ers have another routine slow start to the season? This is an interesting question. Do either of you think that they're going to have a slow start?
I don't know about slow start, but I you've heard me say it. By the way, I see everybody else going out and saying, "Oh, they're going to lose week 1. Pittsburgh's a tough opponent." All of that. I see you saying it now, but I've been saying it from the beginning. It's a very, very tough opponent, so I think they'll lose week 1 to Pittsburgh. And to me, the slow start is all depending on where Purdy's at. Because if he's fully healthy and fully returned to performance, I don't think they'll have a slow start. But again, what happens if like 4 weeks into camp, we find out Bosa has a groin issue, Debo has a hamstring, Kittle has a calf, like these things start piling out. That's another thing that we don't talk about enough with the 49ers slow starts is they usually come into the season a little bit banged up.
Yeah, I mean, this one's tough because Steelers are 13-2 or something like that in the last in their home starts at Heinz Field under Tomlin, some crazy
Tomlin's
number.
11-2 as a home underdog.
Yeah, I mean, they're tough, but and then week 2 they get the Rams on the road. I don't think the Rams are going to be great, but the Rams are a team that's kind of thin, but you know what I mean. It may not show itself in week 2. Then you get the New York Giants in week 3. I don't know. It's I would say the 49ers are hell bent to kind of start faster, but I don't think the schedule does them any favors, to be honest.
It's going to be rough, really rough. Fair the Great. Did y'all watch Devontae Adams' presser? He said Jimmy is coachable, and now the fans are saying DA is Jimmy's head coach. Listen, man, I did see that presser and I didn't know what to make of it. That is I don't know if that's a compliment. Like if that's the best thing you can say about your quarterback, we'll see. I can't wait for those Raider joint practices.
I found that to maybe be a shot at Carr.
Oh, really though? Because Carr's his boy.
Yeah, Carr's his boy going back to Fresno.
Maybe shot at Rodgers.
I think Carr is a guy that was a much better player coming out of Fresno than he is right now. I think he's broken. He's another guy, he's thinking self-preservation. Jimmy's going to stand in more against the rush, but the Raiders defense is a sieve. And I as much as I like Josh Jacobs, is he going to be there week 1? Doesn't sound like it. You got rid of Waller in his prime. I like Michael Mayer, but it may take a little time. The Raiders O-line, kind of questionable. And the Raiders defense, I mean, come on.
Raiders O-line is bad outside of Colton Miller. Colton Miller's a terrific player. The rest of it is
Give you $5 if you can name a Raider linebacker.
Chandler Jones.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, but does he count?
He's a defensive end, man. He's a defensive end.
Fine.
He's an edge. I think that's a cop-out.
They're starting.
I, for whatever reason, the name Denzel Perryman is just stuck in my head when I'm thinking about a linebacker. I don't even know if he has anything to do with the Raiders.
I thought you were going Divine Diablo. That's about it.
Oh, yeah, there we go. From Virginia Tech, Raiders linebacker.
Yep. That's the only guy I can name. The rest of these guys are witness protection program. Robert Spillane, Darren Butler, Luke Masterson, Amari Burney.
Oh, I remember Masterson.
I know Masterson.
Yeah, I know Masterson
Kamal
too. But that's
Mauga, Drake Thomas.
Oh, Drake Thomas. No,
Old man Thomas's kids.
I was like, no. I was like, come on, you serious?
Curtis Bolton. Is any relation to Michael Bolton? I told them I like that ass clown.
Yeah, that no talent ass clown. Shea Lewis.
I kind of celebrate his whole collection. That's one of the greatest movies of all time.
I love it. Love that movie. Shea Lewis says this show is soft AF. Dudes singing Kumbaya, which is an interesting take from literally the worst Twitter space host I may have ever seen. Shout out to Shay. What's up, man? How you doing?
Agreed. And Charles Barkley has taught us it's Kumbaya, not Kumbaya.
Oh, that's true. Kumbaya. Brother Bob, this is actually a good question, and I'm glad he brought it up. Okay, Kevin's dad, rank the DBs, pig in a pickle. I'm going to ask it in a little bit different way. Do you think Womack has any path to starting maybe over Oliver at nickel? And do you like the depth at the cornerback position?
I would say no. I think it's Lenore and Mooney and Oliver. I think those are your. I like Womack, but he looks great wearing number 0. By the way, single 0, not double 0. And I like the depth on at corner. I think this is Luter starts on the pup list, but he's a press man corner with length. Not a huge Ambry Thomas guy, but maybe he bounces back. I love this kid Deshaun Jameson out of Texas. So I think they got some decent guys. They had
Mitchell was a decent signing too, actually.
Who's
I don't feel like that was I don't think that was a throwaway signing.
Armstead likes him. They said that he's known him since the 6th grade. But I think so how many corners you need? I would say they're gonna keep 4 safeties, 6 corners. Lenore, Mooney, Oliver are 3, Luter, Womack, and probably Jameson. Maybe Hartsfield as well, but Hartsfield, he'd be on the bubble.
Special teamer though.
Yeah,
and they might have to cut a special teamer at Sam linebacker. That's where the conversation gets interesting, right? Drafting D. Winters, drafting Jalen Graham. You're basically saying if you're going to keep 5 linebackers, which they will, you're having special team ace Curtis Robinson, special team ace Oren Burks, and core special teamer Demetrius Flanagan Fowles competing with Marcelino McCrary Ball, Jalen Graham, and D. Winters. So they might have to compensate for special teams too by keeping Hartsfield in the secondary. Just throwing it out there. And I think Womack starts, by the way. I've not been at practice, but I've been predicting this. I think the trio will be Womack, Lenore, and Mooney Ward. I've never been a big fan of Isaiah Oliver, and I'm not changing that today.
Coming off a really good year, though.
I think Womack has a path to start, but I don't know. We'll see. Flav says the fact that Purdy is getting live reps, working off the rust right now, instead of a month from now is so huge. Feeling so much better about our chances of getting the number 1 seed this year. Let's freaking go. This I actually agree with Flav, although we don't agree very often. But I think this goes back to the point that Vish and I made many weeks ago when we did a show together. And this has really proved that point, which is he needed competitive reps. If you really thought he was just going to come back, jump in, and be exactly the same, it was never going to happen. And this, I think today was a great example of that. And I agree. It's much better that it's happening now versus, hey, I'm here and we have a game in 2 weeks. I like this. This path is much better for sure.
I agree. Good comment, Flav.
Sean says, do you see a scenario where someone gets fired at the end of the season? I'm getting exhausted with how they run this team. Despite the wins, I'm frustrated and getting burnt out on them acting cute. If anybody got fired, and I don't necessarily see it happening, but if I had to pick someone, Lynch is going to go before Shanahan. So if it was anybody, they'd move on from Lynch. I don't see a path really for that happening, barring missing the playoffs. What about you guys?
Fired? I mean, there's all kinds of turnover player-wise. I think there's a very good chance that Wilkes is one and done, but I don't think he'll be fired. I think there's a chance he may get another gig. He seems to be on the short list of head coaching candidates every year. So I don't know about fired, but I think Wilkes could be a one year DC.
No, I don't see it.
Yeah. Flav says, if Kyle Shanahan had made the team support Trey last year, is it possible that he did it again this year in a desperate attempt to get another team to want him? I think anything's possible. I don't think it's likely. It's pretty obvious. The team is, the way that Trey is being talked about is very different than the way he was talked about last year. We've been talking about forever about, man, can we get anybody to say anything good about him as a football player? You're actually starting to hear those things. And that is a far cry from what we've heard in the past. So I think it's possible. I don't believe that is the case, though.
No.
209er says, think Brockaholics are looking at him with beer goggles.
Jesus.
God, dude. X the chef says, here's $2. Thomas De La Cruz says,
Oh, he gives him the mic back. He picked the mic right back up and gave it back.
Chiefs scored 44 versus San Francisco, Larry. Did San Francisco ever score 45? Here's the mic you dropped. That's actually pretty clever. All right,
I think that was interesting from the quarterback show too, where he's like, Mahomes like, I watch tape.
Yeah.
But were the Niners the only team that played their safeties up and dared Mahomes to throw it over their head? And to me, that's kind of an interesting little debate. If you were a defensive team and you could defend Mahomes right now with the cast that he has, he doesn't have Tyreek, one way, would you rather bring your safeties up, dare him to throw it over your head and see if you could make a play, or let him carve you up underneath all day and all night and dominate time of possession?
Now that Tyreek Hill is gone, I think the original plan New England always has in this, which is we're going to rush 5, clog up the passing lanes, and we're going to play man coverage across the board. We're going to have one safety shade one side, and we're going to double, like a true double on Kelsey, and they're going to get hands on everybody, right? They used to have the bigger corners. J.C. Jackson's first role before he became a starting corner was, you're the 6'4" corner. We're going to put you on Travis Kelsey. Romeo Crennel tried doing a similar thing in Houston with Lonnie Johnson. But I think now that you look at their personnel, and the issue is that they're actually getting more condensed and they're developing a power run game as well, which makes it hard to just feel like you can play man coverage against them because it obviously changes run fit responsibilities on early downs for sure. But yeah, I think that without Tyreek Hill, because you can't play man coverage against Tyreek Hill, right? That was the big issue. You had to double one or the other. I think now, if you have opportunities, you can challenge the Justin Rosses and the Sky Moores and the Marquez Valdez-Scantlings at the line of scrimmage and say, beat us. We're going to play tight man coverage.
I think it depends how healthy and how deep your defense is. When the Niners went into that game, they were thin. Mooney was hurt. They were like, hey, we're gonna roll the dice and make this guy either score quickly, give us the ball back, or we're not going to let them go on 13-play drives.
You know what's the most under-talked about tactical thing they did in that game, though?
What's that?
And to me, it was a pure Andy Reid coaching thing. They got those 2 early neutral zone infraction calls on Nick Bosa in that game. They got both of them in the first quarter within the first 2 drives, and it kind of shut Nick Bosa out for the rest of the game because it felt like Bosa was more worried about getting lined up and getting off the ball right than he was about doing what Nick Bosa does. And I think they took him out of the game that way. And it was a very underrated tactic because their entire game plan was just to F with Bosa. They kept running those reverses, a lot of end arounds, a lot of seat sweeps to that side and mess with them a little bit. But I thought they messed with him and his head and his entire psyche in that game by getting those 2 early neutral zone infraction penalties. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was we've seen him line up really close to the ball. Andy Reid before the game is like, hey guys, watch out for Bosa. He might line up in the neutral zone, and the refs were looking for it and they called it. Because I mean, how many times else did we see Bosa get called for a neutral zone infraction at any point in the year besides that game?
We haven't talked Bosa at all, but let me just say this. I believe, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, and I don't know if you want to bring it up later, Jesse, so excuse me if I'm bringing it up now. But
No, we've got 20 super chats. I think that's going to dominate this show.
Okay. I think the Niners have probably already agreed to a deal with Bosa. I think he's getting $33 million. I think they're looking at their defensive line, and they know that, the only reason that you don't want guys holding out because you think like, oh, you know what, they're going to show up late. They're not going to be in shape. This guy's going to be in shape. So you don't have to worry about that. So to me, this is all about, I don't want Bosa showing up until the middle of August, because if he goes down this season, the Niners' price on the Super Bowl drops dramatically. You got to have Bosa in the Super Bowl. You got to have Bosa in the NFC Championship game. You got to have Bosa in the playoffs. I don't need Bosa in late July, and I don't need Bosa in the first week in August. And I'd be fine if Bosa doesn't show up until the middle of August. because truth be told, I really don't want to see him play at all in the preseason. I'd rather see him rusty in week 1 than go down in the preseason. He's the one guy, when you look at the rest of the defensive end group, you got Drake, who I like, but he's young. You got some question marks behind him. They cannot lose Bosa. And I wouldn't sign. I wouldn't announce. I would if I were the Niners and Brian Aralt calls and, hey, you know what? We'd like to get this done. Yeah, we'll call you next week. You know, I mean, I'm not eager to see Bosa sign. I'd like to see them, you know, the Bosa holdout is a positive for the Niners, not a negative. That's my take on it. Give me your guys' thoughts on that.
I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Vish, you go.
No,
ahead.
I was just gonna say I disagree. Like, I don't think it's a case of the deal is done and they're just waiting to sign it. I think the deal is going to be a little bit contentious to get done. And that's just because that's the nature of the 49ers deal. Now, I don't think it means it's going to get contentious and Bosa is going to be gone. But, I mean, look at all the deals they've done. The Kittle deal got contentious. The Fred Warner deal did not get contentious. The Debo deal got contentious. The Trent Williams deal got contentious. Anytime the 49ers have to fork over that big number guaranteed at signing, it turns a little bit contentious. I think there's 2 conversations with Bosa. One is the $30 million annually. He might or may not get that. But then the other is the guaranteed at signing number. And I was tweeting about this earlier yesterday. To this point, the biggest contracts that the Niners have given out in their history and their regime were the guaranteed at signing, which is the number that the moment you sign the contract that gets wired into your bank account, that number is around $40 million. Debo was around 40. Jimmy G was around 40. Javon Hargrave was around 40. And Trent Williams was around 40, guaranteed at signing. Now, the Trent Williams contract is particularly interesting for this conversation because the number Trent Williams got guaranteed at signing was less than Ronnie Stanley and David Bakhtiari, who both got $60 million guaranteed at signing, $60 million plus. I'm giving you estimates, not the exact numbers. And those 2 guys actually signed before Trent Williams. Now, Trent Williams ended up crossing them in terms of his average annual salary. So that's what's interesting. So if Bosa gets the $30 million, I think that guaranteed at signing number will not be the $78 million that his brother got guaranteed at signing. His brother got his first 3 years of his contract fully guaranteed and got $78 million guaranteed at signing. Why is that number relevant? Because TJ Watt, who most recently signed his contract, got the most amount of money guaranteed at signing for any non-quarterback in the history of the NFL, and that was $80 million guaranteed at signing. So there's 2 numbers with Bosa that are important. One is he going to be in the $30 million threshold where Aaron Donald's the only defensive player there? I think yes. But also, is he going to ask the 49ers to fork over more money guaranteed at signing than they're usually accustomed to? Debo was more than they're usually accustomed to, and I think that's why that deal took so long to get done, and that's why there was so much frustration, because I don't know that the Niners were necessarily always comfortable giving a wide receiver $40 million wire transferred, right? Like, it's different from doing that for a left tackle, defensive end, and defensive tackle versus a wide receiver. And so I do think that the Bosa deal, there is going to be a little bit of conversation, because I think in a negotiation, Bosa is going to try to get every penny he can, and the Niners are going to do what they always do in a negotiation, which is come in hard and try to save as much money as they can. I think the deal ultimately gets done. And I think, Krug, where I agree with you is that they actually have I think they'll have a deadline where, hey, if we don't get the Bosa deal done, like, we have to get the Bosa deal done by like August 4th or something like that. Like, we need Bosa in camp by that point. But till then, I think they'll push the negotiation and try to get the best deal that they can till then. That's been their MO, and I can't see that changing for Bosa.
I think, going to Larry's point, it's not only good for the team that Bosa sits out, regardless of what's actually going on behind the scenes. I think it is good that Bosa sits out for the health reasons and everything he talked about, because we can count on him to come in and shape and all those things. I also think it's good to figure out what you have at the other pass rusher spots, because let's not forget that they do have free money right now to go sign potentially a pass rusher. They've got to figure out between now and the start of the season, does that money have to be spent on a pass rusher? Does it have to be spent somewhere else that maybe we're lacking? Or can we hold on to this money and go into the season, potentially use it for a lopsided trade, or to sign somebody at a position of need when somebody else goes down with an injury? I think those are all important things. So regardless of what's going on, I do think there is some positive with Bosa not being there for multiple reasons.
I want Montez Sweat.
Yeah, I know
Somehow,
you do. You
some
love
way,
him.
somehow, some way. Well,
Yeah,
they gotta get somebody, and I don't want some donkey dinosaur guy. I want somebody who can play. And
Who's
I don't
a
want
donkey dinosaur?
Well, I mean, I don't want
like
some
Houston or something.
Yeah, somebody who's
older.
34,
okay,
Ingram, or one of these
okay.
guys. I want one of these guys that's going to break down. I want to get somebody who that if they get him, Vegas odds change.
All right, here's the
difference
next question then on that. Before we get to the super chats, right? We had this conversation earlier about 2 hours ago. Now that we're at the 2 hour 40-minute mark, 2 hours ago about hey, what is important to look for in the first 2 days of training camp, right? And we all three came to an established agreement that like, hey, usually it's dominated by defense. Offense needs a certain amount of refinement. We agreed on that area and all of that. So while we're on the topic, there was a lot of talk about the body transformation of Drake Jackson this offseason, right? Like he looks like a different guy. Krug, you've had 2 practices where you've been able to see the body, see the guy move and all of that. What are you seeing from the player I could care less if he's having a good practice from a technique standpoint, all of that. That's going to improve in the next 2 weeks. That's what training camp is for. But from a pure physical standpoint, okay, the guy's put on weight. Does he look explosive? Does he look like he's put on good weight, right? Like you can put on weight and be like Dante Pettis where you put on weight and it doesn't like positively affect your game at all. But did Drake Jackson put on weight that like looks good? He's carrying it right. He looks explosive. He looks like how a pass rusher should look because in a lot of ways I would describe his body to be what I would, build in a lab for a pass rusher, that length, that height, his ability to bend. So, yeah, what do you think?
I mean, he's not cut up or anything, but he's definitely put on some upper body mass, and he looks faster than he did a year ago. But it's bags and drills, and this is a padded deal. You got to see the one-on-ones when they're actually doing it, when they're actually blocking and there's actual contact. Drake Jackson looks stronger. Now, is he functionally stronger or is he just bulkier? He's quicker, and
he is okay.
And Shanahan revealed yesterday that during the 40 days between OTAs and camp, when like 90% of the team took off, Jackson hung out in Santa Clara and grinded. So that's great news, man. I mean, he's trying to go get it, and it's just a matter of I got to see it in the one-on-ones. Same with Beal. Beal looks pretty good in the uni, and it looks pretty quick in the drills, but I got to see it. I got to see the one-on-ones with pads. Because you play off of, when you're rushing the passer, you play off of the blocker. I mean, and there's counter moves and are you going to beat a guy with speed? Are you going to, and what if you don't beat a guy with your initial speed, then what? What does your counter look like?
How heavy are your hands? How strong are you when you engage? How strong are you at the point of attack? Surely, yeah, of course you for sure can't see those things until the pads come out.
I'll tell you what made me nervous today. I'm watching the ones, and it was Hargrave, Armstead, Drake Jackson, and Alex Barrett. So they're giving Alex Barrett, who spent the entire season last year on the practice squad, he was running with the ones today.
Oh, so
that to me, they're thin at defensive end. That's why I don't want to see Bosa until the middle of August because they got to have Bosa when it matters. And some of these other guys have got to ball out. I mean, Drake, Beal, Bryant, maybe Barrett. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I think they're a little thin here.
I agree. I do agree with that. And that's why I think it's important to figure out what you've got behind Bosa. Yep. Thomas says, maybe we don't have that guy to win it all. Also a possibility. I agree. X the Chef says, who do y'all think the number 2 back is going to be? We all agree it's going to be Elijah Mitchell, barring injury, right? Or do we think somebody can overtake him?
Ty Davis Price.
They all look good. I mean, they all look good. Seriously. I mean, they really do. Davis Price and Mason are light and explosive. The guy that's, we've been talking tons about Purdy, and Ayuk and Debo have stood out. But the guy who I'm just super fired up on is this Kalen Laburn from Marshall. He's just exactly what you want. He's 5'10", about 210. He was a 5-star guy out of high school. He went to Florida State. He was good at Florida State. He went and got his degree there. Then he transferred to Marshall. He had 300-plus carries last year. He rumbled against Notre Dame in South Bend. Marshall pulled the upset behind this kid. I mean, look at his carries from this year. It's like 31 the next week, 36. This guy's a bell cow back.
Yeah.
And he's an undrafted guy. So I'm telling you, same way I was telling you last year about Brock Purdy, watch out for Brock Purdy, watch out for Kalen Laburn. And that's how it's pronounced. And people call him Laybourne, but it's Laburn. And, this guy's the real deal, man. I mean, I can't wait till the 49ers. I don't know how they do it, but they keep finding these undrafted free agent backs of note. And this kid can catch it. He's got leg drive. You can't arm tackle him. He's quick. I've seen guys take bad angles. He had a couple runs today that were nice. So I'm watching for him you can't tell anything in camp with running backs because, it's just,
you don't get to see him get hit, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just got to be a live deal. But wait until the first preseason game and in the second half, you'll see this kid and people will be touting him left and right.
Right.
I love it.
Seeing a guy run is one thing, but Mike Tomlin has always said it. There's guys that can deliver contact, and then there's guys that take contact. And I remember, I forgot who it was, but I think he was comparing Le'Veon Bell with Michael LaShore. And Ryan Clark said that Mike Tomlin compared the two, and he said that Le'Veon Bell would be good because he delivers contact, and Michael LaShore is just a big guy who takes contact. Michael LaShore from Illinois. Anybody remember him?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Brunny Side Up says Brock scored 0 in Dallas and Philly. They scored 19 in Dallas, didn't they? Or
Played
against
6
Dallas?
plays in Philly.
Damn, dude. I remember this chat coming up. Like, holy cow, we're behind.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's 11:30 is the next one that I'm pulling up.
By the way, the Niners, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle didn't do jack in the playoffs. I mean,
Hey, Debo had a 100-yard game.
But I mean, I don't think did any of them score a touchdown in the playoffs?
Yeah, Debo had an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
All right, maybe the 3 of them scored 1 touchdown in 3 games.
And Kittle had the biggest play, arguably, of the Dallas game. The off schedule on the bootleg rolling off left when Purdy kind of threw it.
Oh yeah.
You mean
he was just sitting there wide open? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the second catch, the when he caught it twice in the middle of the field. Did you talk about that one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. And then there was also a play earlier in that game. I think maybe Purdy's best throw against Dallas. Early in that game, he threw an absolute strike to Kittle. Seam ball. Come on, Larry.
Running back room, G-Code says, running back room is stacked. Will Kyle Shanahan utilize them better? I think that is a great question because we can talk about how good all these players are, but if you're just going to give CMC 25 touches every game and wear him into the ground, then what's the point? All these guys are really good and they deserve touches if they make the roster, it seems like. So take some of that off of CMC. Like, you've proven your point. If there was a point to be proven, this team doesn't tick the way that it ticked without CMC. We all see that. If somebody didn't see that, they do now. Give carries to other guys and keep him healthy. He's very, very important for this team.
I'll say this after watching, just 1 week, a couple practices, 49ers are going to keep no more than 5 wide receivers because you're probably going to have to keep 6 backs. And,
6 backs. Oh, because you're including Juice. Okay, fair enough.
Juice and McCaffrey. And then you got Mitchell, Mason, TDP, and Laburn. Man, that's that. I mean, maybe there'll be an injury, maybe there'll be a trade, but that's and Awat and Coletto are interesting too, but they'll probably practice squad kind of guys. I'm just saying they got a lot of backs. They got a lot of backs. And they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks. So
do any of these backs have a history of punt or kick returns that we can maybe utilize them for to get them on the field?
Ty Davis Price returns kicks, right?
I mean, I saw Danny Gray doing it today in practice, or I heard that he did, whatever.
I mean, I know Ronnie Bell does it. Obviously, Ray.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if any of the running
That's going
backs
to
have
be
that potential.
interesting. That's going to be interesting because I think a lot of us look at Ray's spot as kind of guaranteed because he has the second year of the contract. But they do have an out on his contract, and if they can find a guy who contributes more on the field than him, that's capable of also doing the job that he did, because he did do a good job last year. He didn't fumble, which was the big thing about him. He didn't muff kicks, which was
Till
another
Dallas.
question. Well, yeah, right. But it wasn't. He was, and he returned like extremely efficiently, no doubt. But if we're talking about a roster that's going to be very competitive when we're talking about spots at like 44 and 43 and 42 in this roster, and because of that, like there's going to be maybe a couple of veteran surprise cuts if these young players are as gifted as Krug seems to think they are. And I tend to think they're probably as gifted as Krug seems to think they are.
Kevin O says, you think Brock's disrespected? Check out any Niner community calling Trey the biggest bust in NFL history. Faithful is so toxic these days. It can get toxic out there, man. Wear your boots.
Pump the brakes on the bus talk. Seriously, give this kid a chance to breathe. I mean, can we see a half dozen starts before we say that he's a bust? I mean, it's amazing. People want to be first so badly that it's like first to say he's good, first to say he's bad. I mean, I get it, but man, I mean, it's just like, what's that based on? I mean, you know, we know what it's based on because he's only had 4 starts.
That's right.
It's not based on a lot.
Jesse Wade says, as a 49er fan, all I know and care about is wins. All he did was win. He did everything we as a fan base hoped our QB could and would do. Score points, help our D by capitalizing on turnovers, and win. I agree with all that. He did do all those things. It's not winning is not the only thing, though, because if it was, we would have kept one Jimmy Garoppolo and never moved on from him. However, Brock Purdy seems to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And if they were looking for an upgrade on Jimmy Garoppolo, they've likely found that in Brock Purdy. So I love that. Shay again says, the F is this, a friendship episode? Again, I'm not going to take it seriously coming from the worst Twitter space host I've ever seen in my entire life. Fair the Great says the offense went to 33 points a game, not just Brock. Make it seem like Brock was throwing 5 TDs per when he was averaging 2 TDs. The offense was trending with CMC. Yeah, I mean, I think CMC was pretty damn important for sure. I mean, we just talked about how important he is to the offense. I don't think anybody's debating that at this point.
What was CMC's first game?
Kansas City.
What was the second game? New Orleans?
Rams.
Second game was Rams.
Remember he caught the touchdown,
right.
threw the touchdown,
didn't the offense with Jimmy and CMC score 13 against New Orleans at home?
Yeah, but they averaged 26 a game in total. The average went. Remember, they were only averaging 18 points a game before CMC. That was a full 8-point jump.
Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is they went undefeated with him, basically.
CMC's like credits Brock for helping him learn the playbook. So I don't know. We'll see.
You think do you think Brock? Okay, let's go like this. I think this is a good way to put it. Would you take Brock with Elijah Mitchell and company and no CMC last year, or would you have taken Jimmy with CMC? What would you have rather had?
I mean, CMC is really, really good. So, I mean, I get it, but I'm just saying, I was at the New Orleans game and they scored 13 at home with CMC.
Obviously, I'm assuming health because that's a big assumption, and that's tough to assume. But give me Jimmy and CMC over. I don't know, Mitchell and.
They played poorly in the New Orleans game, but New Orleans defense, that was one of the few times last year that their front was healthy. Davenport, Cam Jordan, all those guys played in that game.
Onyemata.
Yeah, and so New Orleans defense, when their front is healthy, is very good.
Davis, yeah.
DeMario Davis is a stud. Lattimore is good. Alonzo Taylor is a good player. Austin Adebo is a very talented player.
They got some nice players in the backs end too. Alante, whatever from Tennessee.
Yeah,
But no,
Alante Taylor.
I
Good
just,
player.
I think CMC was just the ultimate check down, right? I mean, for Jimmy, especially late in the down, Jimmy was a disaster late in the down until CMC.
Agreed. Well said.
Oh yeah. I mean, he went his whole career without having 3 straight games with 0 turnovers. And as soon as CMC got there, it's like, oh, you had 4 straight. I think there's a reason for that. CMC is the ultimate cheat code.
And
you could see he was so comfortable with CMC knowing that he could just dump down whenever he wanted. Like the happy feet calmed completely down.
Dude, does anybody remember this? Sam Darnold starting 3-0 in Carolina, and then Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. Well, he got hurt in week 2, but the week 3 game they played like Houston or something on Thursday Night Football. So it was like Larry Krueger and me and you, Jesse, could have won that game.
That's funny. Don is upset about your reaction to his comment earlier. He said, funny how Larry calls me names, but it's him that's getting emotional over Brock Purdy on a live. Relax, bro. Taking a pickle.
Don, don't be butthurt, buddy. You're going to be all right, bro.
Krug won't mute you either, Don. Only blocks. Never mutes.
Yeah, he doesn't mute.
You'll be all right, bro. Stay with
Mike drops with Monsa. What's up, Monsa? How you doing, man? He says, no one believes that coming from you, Larry, but go crazy. I don't, dude, this was an hour ago. I don't even know what we were talking about then.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. If you think they are both, okay. Yeah. He clarified. If you think they're both franchise quarterbacks, you would keep the one with the highest upside. Maybe I'm wrong, but the backtracking isn't believable.
No, I just because I believe Trey's a franchise quarterback down the road, it's the for sure in hand. It's like if I gave you a C note and I said I maybe could give you a second one. You know what? You got the C note in your hand. You know, the bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. I think something like that, right?
I think so. I don't know. I'm so bad with idioms. I'm awful with them. I have no idea.
All I'm learning from this show is there are so many people dying to talk to Larry. Larry, you need to have a call-in show, man. Like, there are people who are chopping at the bit just to talk to you about football.
Dude, I had a guy this morning. I gave a Brock Purdy. I gave a Brock Purdy opinion, and he was so triggered that he attacked my deceased mother. Seriously.
Fuck, dude.
Seriously.
What?
And I had to retweet it. I'm like, seriously, dude, you got to check yourself, bro. You got to check yourself.
Whoa.
Jeez, bro.
It was bad, bro.
People are unhinged.
I know. I was like, come on, man. I'm like, it's a football opinion. Can we
all right,
leave my deceased mother out of this, please?
I stand corrected. Maybe you don't need.
Yeah, that might be better.
Yeah.
Usually those people aren't going to call in though. They're usually punks. I'll say this: it is going to be interesting as we do this rotation throughout the year, because I feel like when you come over here, it's going to be like behind enemy lines style. And I know when I go on your channel, because it already happened last week, it's behind enemy lines for me as well, because some of the comments over there was like, I love everybody but Jesse. Like, yeah, what it is.
I think I'm pretty polarizing from whatever reason. I'm easy to hate.
The first thing I was going to say when we got off of this show was the comment section last week when everybody was like, oh, love everybody on this show but Naylor. Get Naylor out of here. Why is Naylor on with this guy? And then we come this week and everybody in the comments is saying, what is Krug doing with this guy? What is Kevin's dad doing here? Get Kevin's dad out of here and all of that. It's like I thought that the audiences were pretty, relatable here. I thought we had a similar audiences. Completely different comment sections, though, I'll tell you that. I wouldn't mind if you guys would say some things about Vish, like positive or negative. Like I wouldn't mind to get some traction.
You always skirt under. It's like, I don't, Vish literally has basically told you, like, I don't like either quarterback. Not that he hasn't said that, but verbatim, like if I'm labeled the Trey guy and he's labeled the Purdy guy, Vish is like labeled, he hates both of them, but somehow just keeps skating underneath everything. It's crazy to me.
Vish has got a sign saying, go get Kirk Cousins next year.
I actually
he's the Dak
name
Prescott
is
guy.
worse than Kirk Cousins. I say.
By the way, Vish, did you see the odds on the first head coach to be fired in the NFL?
Who is it?
Mike McCarthy.
Oh,
Number one, Mike McCarthy. Somebody knows something.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
I mean, come on, Dan. How many more years do you think they can just keep Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator? No way they can just keep that going.
Who did they lose? Who did they lose the OC to?
Kellen Moore. He's in LA with the Chargers.
Okay.
With Justin Herbert. I actually kind of like that. I don't know about you, Krug. I like it.
No, I like the Chargers. I was watching. Did you guys watch any of those? Last year recap. Half-hour deals or whatever, hour-long deals. I watched the one on the Chargers, and I started looking at the Chargers a little bit this week, and I thought, you know what? Could this be Niners Chargers in Vegas? I could see it.
Ooh, that'd be dope. I love her. I'm a Herbert guy, so that'd be great. We didn't even mention it, but one thing, have you guys been watching the top 100 and you see that Huff and Greenlaw were like 78 and 79 on the top 100 list? I think Huff was 78.
79.
Yeah, and Greenlaw was 79. Yeah.
I'll say this: when I watched the all 22 of Niners Bears, Huff was badass in that game. Oh my God, he was everywhere.
He's playing, and it's so funny because in those kinds of wet conditions, what happens, right? Your cleats usually get caught, and so everybody plays a step slower. And he's like, they put him in like whatever cleats he was wearing. They had to get everybody else in those cleats because he is triggering and diagnosing run versus pass so fast in that game.
Yeah, he is.
The way he played early in that season, in fact, was
he fell off some blitzes at the end of the year. He fell off some tackles, but Huff is like their new leader back there.
Up to the Carolina game where he had some issues in the alley.
Yeah, he's quiet. And he's a respectful guy, but man, he on the field, he talks it up. I like Huff, man. But Greenlaw's my guy, man. Greenlaw, my favorite interview on the team is talking violent hits with Greenlaw.
Yeah,
he loves the violence of the game.
Neil says, hat tip, Brock Purdy is already better than Derek Carr.
Come on.
Or hot take. I thought it was Twitter. He was like giving somebody credit. Hot take. Okay. Brock Purdy is already better than Derek Carr.
Easily.
It's too early.
How do we say that? Starting in the NFL as a quarterback is hard to do. Whatever you want to say about Derek Carr, the man has managed to be a starter in the NFL consistently for 9 straight years. That's not easy. He kept his job. He kept his health. He did that. Look,
he kept his health. Anytime there's anybody bearing down on him, he throws it into the turf.
Whatever it is, Krug, you got to be available to start every week. He did do that. I think there's some credit to that. I think Brock Purdy will end up being better.
Yeah, I think Garoppolo is going to be better
today.
I also want to give Derek Carr credit because the Raiders 2 years ago were an absolute dumpster fire of an organization. Everything that could go wrong could. You got first-round draft picks flashing guns and threatening people. You got your racist coach coming out and getting fired. Like, they still made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Ruggs killing people, literally. Like, he went out and led that team somehow to the playoffs. I think that should be commended as well. I would say if Brock Purdy was this same player his whole career, then yes, of course. But to say that 8 games in, to just assume that this is always going to be it, like it's hard for me to take 8 games and be like, yep, he's better than 10 years in the NFL. I think that's
most inexcusable thing a quarterback can do is throw the ball into the turf on the final play of the game when they're behind.
That's fine.
Carr's done it multiple times.
But dude, I mean, to override 10 years with 8 games, I don't know. That's too much for me. I can't
Jesse
go there.
said. Forget what I said. I agree with Jesse.
Jesse Wade says, disclaimer, I'm a Trey truther. I love the kid. Fair enough. Flav says, once you know someone can...
both Larry and Jesse are Trey truthers here, so...
Flav says, once you know someone is actually capable of playing well in games, it's easier not to put a ton of weight into practice because you know who he is. Hopefully Trey can play well. See, that's the shit right there. Like, your comment was cool. Like, if you ended it, like, hey, Brock, we know who he is. Then you go, oh, like, it's just super disrespectful stuff for both quarterbacks. It's like, come on, man. That's so disrespectful. So disrespectful. That being said, I think it's important for Brock to practice well. Maybe not day one, but at some point, because it is Brock post injury. We haven't seen Brock post injury play in games. And so if Brock post injury can't be accurate on a regular basis, that becomes an issue. So I don't think that is going to be the case. And I'm not going to say that after day one that is the case. But if that becomes the case in practice, then you got to start to think, like, is something missing? Is it a confidence thing? What is it? But this is not the guy that we remember. So I disagree with actually saying that it doesn't matter for him at all. Brother Bob says, Nails, get the football guy who was on the field today to say that Purdy looked like dog shit on your show with Larry, so Larry can tell him he's wrong, okay? It's not going to happen.
Jeez.
Justin
Is that the
says
scientific term, dog shit?
It is very, I think so. It's very scientific. Justin says Peyton Manning's rookie year stats. Deep breath, people. Deep breath.
Dude, if another person says Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions, I heard it about Mark Sanchez throwing 20-something interceptions. I heard it about Jay Cutler. I heard it about this quarterback. I heard it about that quarterback. We were talking about arguably the greatest prospect in the history of football in Peyton Manning throwing 28 interceptions as a rookie. He was an outlier. He always will be an outlier. Please stop comparing.
You know who I like to bring up, though? When we talk about Trey Lance, is actually not Peyton Manning. It's your boy. No, Matthew Stafford. Go look at Matthew Stafford's first 2 years in the league. And then he also got injured in year 2. Imagine if the Lions had moved on from him the way the 49ers have Trey. Then the next year he comes back. I think it was the year he passed for 5,000 potentially.
5,040 touchdowns. They started 5-0, and Jim Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz had that beautiful little handshake at midfield, and Alex Boone was ready to party. Good times.
The reason I bring him up is because bringing up Peyton Manning is a top 5 quarterback, arguably of all time, is crazy. I think also bringing up Josh Allen, who's an absolute alien, is crazy. Matthew Stafford is very, very talented. But I think he's probably, in my opinion, shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. He's borderline. So I think that's like a realistic, like, hey, it could look like this, where he has a very, very good career. Potentially, if you look at those first 2 years, it was very, very bad. It
was tough.
Give me a comp on Trey and Brock. Who's the best comp you can come up with for Trey and Brock?
Best case scenario?
For Trey, I'm going Alex Smith. I think he reminds me of Alex Smith. Alex Smith got really good. It took a while. I really think Trey's going to be really good. It's going to take a while.
I mean,
Brock reminds me of a little bit of Russell. A little bit of Russell.
I don't know.
I don't know if I see Russell.
I
think Hurts is more Russell.
But, small guy. But I just,
I don't see Russell with Hurts. Hurts is terrible throwing outside of the pocket.
No, I know. But as far as like as a runner and physically
fair.
how they're built, I
fair.
see similarities.
That big lower half, the running back legs.
I see Russell in Brock in that when Brock, it wasn't against Seattle where he slid down and put the ball forward.
Yeah.
That was such a Russell play.
Yeah. Which, by the way, to me, I always thought it was where the slide starts. I felt like they actually gave Purdy on that particular play. I was like, hold on a second. Like, if it's where the slide starts, shouldn't the ball have been spotted? I thought that was a weird spot because I always thought the rule was where this. Anyways, that's way beside the point.
You got a Trey comp though?
I mean, it's so tough for me. I always said like Air McNair was the guy that I thought there was a lot of similarities there.
My best case scenario Trey comp was always Dak with better physical traits. Brock is a guy I find difficult.
So hard
in general.
Yeah. I mean, physically, there's a lot of guys that he's similar to, but he's so much better than them mentally that it's like, how do you even, I don't know.
I'm trying to,
Willie Snead gave me a Drew Brees.
I mean, size-wise, yeah. But he's also a lot quicker than Drew.
Yeah, and he's more active in, like, Brees' game like I understand it had to change because of injuries, and Breeze was a good athlete and all of that, but Breeze's game was always being on time, on schedule, being fundamentally the most perfect quarterback. And I think part of what makes Brock a little bit unique, and I think part of the infatuation with Brock, is that there's this totally unexpected ability between his ability to change his release point and his ability to move to make plays off schedule. Like he has an ability to do that. He has that creativity. So yeah,
it's tough. And I see the Russell Wilson thing to a certain, like I kind of know where you're going with it, because I think behind the line of scrimmage he's got that like Houdini type thing, which is, I mean, that's uncoachable. You either have that or you don't. And so I see that, like the Romo, the, you know, nifty behind the line of scrimmage, making people miss type of thing. But he's really hard to comp. I think both of them are actually hard to comp. I really don't know.
Russell
Mike
kind of
drops,
reminded me of Fran Tarkenton. I mean, old comp, but
yeah,
you know, figure eights and running around.
for sure. Mike drops with the monster, says former cornerback Jonathan Joseph as the DB coach for D'Amico Ryans. Hey, Jonathan Joseph,
awesome
man, he had
football player.
a very, very good career. I like the hiring of a lot of these players that you're starting to see. I love what the Lions have done, where they've basically like taken their whole staff, their ex players. I love that.
By the way,
Texans
are my sleeper team this year, guys. I like the Texans.
Okay. Interesting.
Seriously, Tunsil and Titus Howard, most underrated tackle combo in the game.
Yes.
I think Stroud's damn good. They're going to run the ball a ton with Pierce. Mechie, I think, is going to really come of age. And then you add Will Anderson on your defensive front, and you got
Jimmy
some nice
Ward.
players in that secondary. You got Jalen Petrie, you got Jimmy
Stingley.
Ward, you got Stingley. I think that secondary is damn good. I like Houston. I think it won like 3 games last year. I can see them winning closer to 8.
By the
Their
way,
defense is going to be nice.
I agree. Jonathan Joseph and Leon Hall, one of the most underrated cornerback duos of my lifetime. Both terrific players.
Yeah, I agree with that. Flav says, whenever Trey holds the clipboard, we at least get to the NFC Championship. Do you think they still allow him to hold the
don't read this. Let's keep going.
Dude, come on, man. Justin says, how can we trade for Max Crosby? Jeez, I wish. Realistically, putting him opposite of Bosa would break the league. It might be the best line in NFL. Yes, and yes. Not realistic at all. I wish.
He's not getting moved. The fact that they signed because he wasn't a first-round pick and they were forced to sign him last year, Max Crosby's deal is such a discount relative to where he is, because I would say he's in the conversation with the Bosas, the Parsons, the Myles Garretts, the Joey Bosas. Like he's somewhere in the precipice of that conversation, and he's paid a tier little bit less than those guys. So
for sure. Muhammad says, predict this year's captains. Is 13 one of them? Ooh, this is a really good question. How many did they have last year?
They have like 6 or something like that.
6,
I think they go with 6. It'll be, in my opinion, it'll be Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and then I think
Brandon Ayuk's got to be in there. I don't care.
It's very political with how the 49ers vote their captains. It's always pretty political. Their best players are there. I don't think that I can't see Brandon Ayuk being a captain with Deebo Samuel not being a captain, and I can't see Deebo Samuel becoming a captain this year because they have all those numbers. So, yeah.
The Niners got a really quiet group on their front 7. I'll say Fred Warner on defense and CMC on offense.
I mean, it's tough. I just feel – I think they should. Listen, whoever starts at quarterback, assuming it's Brock, again, I think that's one of those ways that you can back that player up. Is give them
that
a
they
captain's
didn't
patch.
do last year, by the way.
Right. So I think they should give him one. I think Ayuk deserves one. I'm not saying they will, but for me, I would take Brock. I would take or whoever starts at quarterback, assuming it's Brock. I would take Ayuk,
McCaffrey,
Williams,
George Kittle,
Trent Williams. I wouldn't take George Kittle. I would take Bosa and Fred Warner.
No Armstead.
Nope.
Oh, you're saying who you would take, not
Who I would take.
Yeah,
who I would
okay,
take.
I get
Yeah.
it. I get it now. I was gonna be like, yo, Armstead's been the captain for the last like 7 years. How are
I
they
know
gonna
he
just?
has. G Code Travel says, who will be the next Hufanga 2.0 on offense or defense? So who's the big
Meaning
breakout
what?
name? Huh?
Oh, I was saying meaning what?
Yeah, I think the big breakout name this year.
On offense and defense?
Offense or defense. Either way.
I'll say Jair Brown on defense. Jair Brown there's a presence about that kid. And when I talk to him in the OTAs, it's like, this guy's driven. He's not just, and he's a great player. This guy led New Jersey in steal, the state of New Jersey in steals. His break on the ball is crazy good. So I'd say Jair Brown.
You are such a scout, Larry. I love that.
This kid's break is crazy. And every time I see him, he gets better. And he, there's a swagger about him on the practice field. The kid has a presence. So I would say him. Bust out on offense.
Let me say this real quick.
Only you hear scouts go, man, that kid, him, his break on the ball. He led the state of New Jersey in steals as a basketball player in high school. Like, only a scout would know that information, immediately say, I love that, Larry.
I asked the kid about it too, and he's like, yeah, man. He had a big smile on his face when I asked him if if his steals in basketball have made him a better football player. He wanted to talk about it. He was like, everybody else in the room could have left. We could have just sat there and chopped it up.
I had a Seahawks content creator who also puts in a lot of work when the draft comes around, and he told me that Jair Brown reminds him, just for his break on the ball, of Earl Thomas. And he's like, listen. He said, I get it. He goes, I totally get it as far as the speed difference in what they ran. But he said, if you just watch him cover ground the way he did in college and his instincts, he said, it reminds me of Earl Thomas.
I'll go with Ayuk on O, by the way. Ayuk is just on another level. Yeah. Jesse, wait till you come out here and see Ayuk.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Ayuk he's
special.
He's gonna, Grant said it the other day, and he's totally right. Ayuk somebody's gonna drop Ayuk with a punch one of these days, because he catches the ball, he turns to the defense, and he's just like, he puts it in their face. I mean, he's just
good.
He's got swagger for days, man.
That's what I'm saying. He needs to be a captain.
Yeah.
Anyways. Mike Drops with Monza says Niners are $30 million under the cap next year without Bosa's extension. Rolling that money over, the Niners are bean counters, and they play bean counting with the quarterbacks.
Well, that's interesting. That sounds like Brandon Allen's a third string quarterback to me.
Yeah, possibly. Brother Bob says Jay in super chats, us peons per Kevin's dad paid for.
Wow, jeez.
Golly. Mike Drops with Monza says
it's getting late at night.
It was Tomlin and Richardson from Alabama.
Yeah, it was Trent Richardson. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But I think Le'Veon Bell was in the 2013 draft and Trent Richardson was in the 2012 draft, if I remember correctly.
Oh gosh.
No, actually,
I'm gonna save this one for late.
The thing about Michael LaShore, my AirPods just ran out of battery, so that just gives you perspective on how long the show has been going. But the thing I remember about Michael LaShore is that year the Lions made the unwise decision of taking. Did they take him, Fairley, and Titus Young all in the same draft? No way they did that.
Was that the same draft? Look that one up and get back to me. While we're doing that, Larry can entertain us by giving us a bulky explanation on the QB situation.
Can you go back to the last one with Don C there?
He's going to have to jump out. He's going to have to get back in.
Come on, Don. Come on, bro. Be a supporter. The Crew channel is a hell of a channel. You got Kevin. Neither Larry nor Kevin has torn an ACL We're just having some fun, bro.
Dude, I swear I thought I went for 30 seconds. When did Balky join us?
We're just chopping it up. Come on, Don. Don't have me lose a supporter, Don. Come on, man. I'm sorry, Don. I didn't mean to call you Lance's uncle. I really didn't mean to call you an idiot. I know it ain't cool. Come on, Don. Come on back.
Because G Code asked Larry to give a
man.
bulky explanation on the quarterbacks. Oh man.
Come on, Don. Seriously, bro. We're just chopping it up. Don't be that sensitive. Hey, I can sit here and listen to all kinds of people rip on me. You don't see me getting bent. Come on, Don. Don't leave. Bring it on back, Don.
Stay.
Come on, Don.
Stay, Don. Stay. Hey, well, you can support me at the very least. I'll take your support.
And me. Don't forget me, Don.
Yeah, don't support Vish. He's the undercover hater, really. And in fact, actually, Ken has this right. Vish loves Sam Darnold.
No.
No.
Vish hates Sam Darnold. No, hate's a strong word. Vish doesn't hate.
Vish does not support Sam Darnold. He does not support this message. Jeremiah Smith. That what we did with Jimmy won 5 games to sign a $100 million contract. Yeah. Luckily for the 49ers, if Brock Purdy somehow ends up anything like Jimmy, they are not in a situation where they have to pay him. We're going to see him for 3 years before we make a decision. So, Flav says it's disrespectful to hope Trey plays well in real game. Come on, bro.
He knows it's okay. He knows what he's doing.
The fact that you think, like, this is what I'm going to say, Flav. If you think I'm that stupid, you've got it very, very twisted, my man. Very twisted. I'm not the one. So don't play dumb with me. Mike drops
like
with
the logo.
Monza.
That's a sharp logo.
It is a sharp
It hit
logo.
1 o'clock Eastern time, and Jesse was like, "It's over. We ain't messing around anymore. We've almost had this show for longer than an NFL game. It's time to get going."
It's 3.5 hours.
Fourth quarter, Jesse is turned on.
What you don't know,
who's
what you don't know.
Who's making more this year, Brock Purdy or Jesse with these live chats?
I will say this. You don't know that I had a 4-hour stream already this week with the Seahawk guy. So this is my second 4-hour stream I'm embarking on.
Whoa.
We're close. Mike drops with Monza says comps Trey to Mahomes without Reed and Purdy as Romo.
Sorry, Monza. That's my reaction when I see the Mahomes name put
He
out
says
there.
Mahomes without Reed, meaning if he was drafted by Shanahan, he'd be a broken player.
I believe Purdy's got more playoff wins than Romo right now.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Didn't Romo only have one?
Let me ask you this. Biggest question about Purdy. You think he catches that snap and sets up the hold for who was the kicker out of Ohio State that the Cowboys had? Or do you think he's fast enough to beat Jordan Babineau?
I think he's fast enough to beat Babineau.
Behind by Jordan Babineau. Remember Jordan? No, was it Jonathan or Jordan? Which one was the defensive tackle? Which one was
I think it was Jonathan. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, I think he's quick enough.
Safety. I think Jordan.
He's quick enough to get there.
I don't know my Babineaus.
You don't know your Babineaus? I think both Babineaus were on Seattle at some point together.
Maybe I'll call Don and ask him.
I think he's quick enough. Come back. I think he's quick enough to outrun him just because he's got that short area. I don't know. That 10-yard split's pretty legit, so I'll take that part. Let's see. Mike Drops comes back and says, any running back we let go goes to Houston, in my opinion. Maybe.
Or Miami.
Yeah, Miami's that's a good.
Or Seattle.
Speaking of, man, Ramsey got hurt today. Hopefully he's okay, man. They said he's out 4 to 6 weeks, torn meniscus. So, I really should read your comment before I put it on screen because I don't know if I trust it. I'll read it in a second. Wave 9 says Trey's full potential equals Deshaun Watson. Now hear me out. Brock Purdy's comp for me is White Kyler. Why do you have to say White Kyler? Why can't it just be Kyler? Both small guys, both can run. K1 is faster. I know.
Do the Niners put a clause in Purdy's deal about how much film he watches?
Yeah, I think there's 2 big differences. One, Kyler actually 3 big differences. Beyond the line of scrimmage, Kyler is elite. Kyler also has a big time arm, and Purdy there's no question about
Kyler's
his
one of the best.
dedication.
Wait. Pause. Kyler is one of the best athletes in the NFL.
That's
He
what I'm
was a top
saying.
10 pick in the MLB draft. We can't. There's not many
Yeah.
people in the world we can compare to Kyler Murray as an athlete.
The Niners would not take Kyler straight up for Purdy. I doubt it.
I don't think so either, but I think that's more a Niners system preference, quarterback style preference thing than it is Purdy has more talent than Kyler. I think pound for pound, Kyler has more talent than Purdy for sure.
I'm glad I took Flav's comment off because that was probably the worst of all of them. Mike drops with Monza says Ayuk isn't captain material in this locker room. Ooh, I disagree with that heavily. I don't know, man.
And Mike Drop has been in the Niner locker room, I'm sure.
What do you think? I mean, he seems to be beloved in that locker room. Here's the thing: is offense and defense. There's a split in locker rooms. Like usually they're not befriending each other. When you see players hanging out outside the game, it's usually offensive players with offensive players, defensive players with defensive players. So let's wipe out the defense, who respects the hell out of him regardless. He may not be their favorite guy, but they respect his game. You know that. But those offensive players, I know, have to love and respect the hell out of Ayuk. They have to.
But loving and disrespecting is different from making him a captain, right? And if you look at the guys that they've made captain in the past, it's the highest paid players on the team, and it's the guys that have received the individual accolades too. And making Ayuk a captain over Debo, I can't see this team playing that kind of politics because one, Debo has the bigger contract. 2, Debo has been the first team All-Pro. Ayuk hasn't been that. And then 3, Debo's older than Ayuk, right? The only example is Eric Armstead was a captain before Nick Bosa was a Pro Bowler, all of those kinds of things, except Eric Armstead had been on the team for 5 or 4 years before Nick Bosa ever got there. So I think Ayuk is 100% captain material. I just don't think it happens because the way they've elected captains has been exceptionally political the last 4 or 5 years.
How about both? I mean, Ayuk. If Ayuk's really going to take off, he already led them in yards and receptions and targets. I mean, he's the guy. If he really is going to take off, then he's going to get to a different level. I don't know. He's kind of an interesting personality.
I think he takes off, by the way. And I think if he takes off in 2024, Brandon Ayuk could be a captain of the 49ers. But I don't think it will be preemptive. Like, that takeoff needs to happen is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's fully a meritocracy where we just elect who we feel are the best captains. Because I think then a guy like John Feliciano all of a sudden gets captain, warranted, whatever. I think there's also politics in making sure the highest paid players and the best players are looked at as leaders as well. I mean, who's the guy on the 49ers that was made captain before like everybody knew he was a prominent and excellent player? Who?
I mean, they probably would have 2017 they would have had to, maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Mike McGlinchey is the only one I can think of, but he was the 9th overall pick, and they were hyping him up to be their next Joe Staley, and he was captain for 1 year during the pandemic year. He couldn't put up with the criticism he took in the pandemic year, and he was gone as a captain the very next year.
I wonder if Aaron Banks could ascend to that position because he's a hell of a player. He really is.
There's one.
Justin says hardest hitting defender on the team as of now. It's got to be Greenlaw, right?
Hands down.
Or Huff. Yeah, Greenlaw. And Mike Drop says, "Thank you, Vish. It's so political." I think being political is different than he's not captain material. And maybe the wording was like, you're typing it out, whatever.
I think he meant this team to say that he's not a
That's
captain
fair.
for this
That's
team.
totally fair. But the way it read was he's not captain. You know what I mean? So the way it read was not what you obviously meant with limited characters on $2. So there you go. I know there's practice tomorrow, Larry. The media will be there. and the general public will not. So make sure you keep tuned in to Larry's channel for instant reactions, and I'm sure he'll go live tomorrow night as well with somebody to break down all of tomorrow's practice. Make sure you're tuned into Vish's channel because next week, in fact, here we go. I'm going to make this easy for you guys. There you go. The name, that's the channels. Make sure you tune into Vish's channel because next week, the three of us will be on his channel taking this show on the road over there.
Yeah.
And then make sure you are tapped in over here because Sunday I will be at training camp dropping my own content and I will be keeping you up to date all next week as well. Until next week. Yeah.
Next week, both Larry and Jesse will be coming on after individually watching practice themselves. So if you thought today was good with me and Jesse not just going off of what Larry had to say, I'm bringing my popcorn. I'm going to bring 2 bottles of water. I'm going to be ready to go for next week to watch Larry and Jesse tell us what happened in practice and what's been happening in practice.
It'll be good. It'll be good too because, and this is what I was telling people.
Can we get to 500 next week?
Oh, easy.
That's
yes, absolutely.
Easily,
No
yeah.
question. No question.
I don't know if we got to 500. We got close though.
Yeah, we popped over
this?
5.
You're seeing the live viewers, Krug?
No, but I've got YouTube.
We popped over 5, unless they're counting. Unless a couple people were watching on Facebook. I guess that could count. But either way, it'll be interesting. And I was talking about this more so with like my disagreements potentially with Grant, but definitely with Larry as well, because what we're all doing is we see practice, we immediately go and we put out content and we put our opinion out in a snapshot. That means it's out there in the ether. Our opinion is now there and it's cemented. So later on, when we go do a show, if that opinion is different than another person, it definitely will make for very, very interesting conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, we went 3 hours, 30 minutes. I wanted to talk about Javon Kinlaw today, and we didn't even get there. So,
bro, I had 3 other topics we didn't even get to.
Oh,
Flav says he's looking forward to Larry hosting again.
Thank you, Flav. Steve Wilkes had a lot of good things to say today about Javon Kinlaw. So Kinlaw is looking good.
First off season, he got to train, didn't have to rehab. What a world of difference it makes.
It's amazing too when you get to a point in your career where it's do or die time. And I think Javon is an enormous talent. But he might be at that do or die moment of his career.
Agreed. And
you know what? When guys are facing their mortality, it's like they sometimes will step it up. And maybe if he fulfills his potential, watch out.
Dude, he's so talented. He's so talented.
Beside the knee thing, I mean, I was excited when he was drafted, man. I was excited because the talent was clearly there and the drive was there too. I remember this was somebody that was homeless basically at one point. Like going through that in your personal life tells you that you have the stick-to-itiveness to see it through to the other side. So I don't think it's any surprise that he's had these injuries repeatedly, maybe chronically, I don't know.
And he's still
and still managed to make it to this point. If Kinlaw doesn't make it in this league, it's not due to anything other than he's got a serious injury that just is not going to allow him to play football. And I think that's possible. But if we're talking about from an athletic standpoint or a want to standpoint, there is no question there. He meets both of those.
His only thing is sometimes he plays a little bit high, and it's because he's a taller defensive tackle. But when he plays low, he's one of the most, dominant defensive tackles I've seen come out. I mean, there's been a few in college, like Jalen Carter, Quinnen Williams, truly special players. But Javon Kinlaw and Derek Brown were as good as like the Christian Wilkins, the Jeff Simmons, all of those kinds of guys coming out. I mean, you turn on the Alabama game and the Georgia game from Javon Kinlaw's final year at Clemson, at South Carolina, his senior year. He played exceptionally well. And then the Senior Bowl, the 2 days he was there, the one-on-ones, Lloyd Cushenberry is the only draftable name that I remember that he went up against, but he made everybody and their grandma look bad in the Senior Bowl. One of the more dominant Senior Bowl performances in the one-on-ones.
How much is that high play due to his potential bad knee, though? You know, I mean, that's a very possible thing. You're trying to take weight off of it. You're overcompensating. So if he's healthy, I think that we could be in for a treat. We really could.
Hargrave called him a freak today in a good way.
He is a freak.
Hey, Krug, what about Hargrave, though? Have you ever seen an athlete like that that's got that thick of a lower half, that wide hip, that moves the way he does?
He reminds me a lot of Dana Stubblefield.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Who's unfortunately incarcerated right now, but he was a good friend. But I mean,
Warren Sapp.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's,
Sapp wasn't that wide down low though. Like
he was built like a square.
Like wide. It's
he was built like a square.
Right. If you take Geno Atkins and you just add like 35 pounds to Geno Atkins on his hips and his legs, but you make him move like Geno Atkins used to move. That's who he is.
Yeah.
It's hard to, when you're built with all your weight from the waist down and you're still a pass rusher, that's rare.
Nobody moves like him too.
He's a leverage monster, man. That's what he is.
He gets under everybody, dude.
He talked about it today too. He's like, yeah, leverage is my game, and I play low. And he's a soft-spoken guy. They got a very soft-spoken D line that kind of lets their play do the talking. Bosa's quiet, Armstead's quiet, Hargrave's quiet. But I'll tell you, when you add, I mean, think about this, guys. I know we're going to wrap it up here, but when you have
maybe
two guys who in your front four that command double teams, changes the whole dynamic of your D. Really does. So we'll see.
Real quick, too, does Armstead look healthy?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
He's looking good.
Quiet ones are usually the biggest badasses, so that doesn't surprise me. They're quiet and as good as they are. So that does not surprise me at all. All right, y'all. See you soon. Peace.